young men are going to revolt. You cannot tell men that every aspect of their masculinity is bad and toxic and evil and they're responsible for all of the world's ills and expect to get away with that long term because they're the ones that fight the wars, police the streets, etc.
Today, we have a treat. We're talking to Nick Freitas, not your typical politician, by the way. He's a former Green Beret. He is a battle-tested freedom fighter. He is a total badass.
They're either going to be the people that stand on the wall and guard against the barbarians, or they will be the barbarians.
What do you think influence young women have over young men?
When a man has a woman that he just desperately is in love with, oh, he'll move mountains. I think young men more than anything want not just something to fight for, they want someone to fight for.
You think dads should be dangerous?
Yes.
Tell me why.
Because they're worthless if they're not. A primary job of a man is to protect and to provide. I have yet to find a single woman that is genuinely attracted to a man that she doesn't feel safe around.
How do you think you raise a son today to be that? I guess I was watching one of your stories the other day, and it was about fatherhood. And one in particular I thought was funny was about, and I'm going to mispronounce it, but the agoge with your son.
Yeah.
And the story about your wife.
Yeah,
you
the
tell
Spartan
that story?
agoge. Yeah. So we were watching Real Steel. You know that movie?
No.
So it's a movie with Hugh Jackman, and think Rocky, but with robots.
Copy.
Right? So anyways, we're watching the show, and these robots are fighting, and it's kind of this really inspirational Rocky style thing. And Luke's watching; he's just kind of intent watching the screen. And I looked over at Tina. I got my two daughters there as well, and I asked her. I said, "Do you know what the agoge is?" She goes, "It's the agoge." I said, "That's where the Spartans sent their children, starting at age 7, to prepare them for the process of becoming a man within the Spartan city-state." And then I said, "Watch this." And Luke was about 6 or 7 at the time. And I said, "Hey, buddy, come here." And we wrestled and stuff like that. But this time I wrestled just a little bit harder, right? And so we got the hands up, and just enough to kind of not enough to hurt him, but enough to jar him. And he just something changed, and he just tackled me, and we're wrestling. And Tina goes, "What just happened to my little boy?" And I said, "Oh, no, he's not yours anymore. He belongs to me now." And
what a line, by the way. That is such a good line. I would have been proud. I was like, that's a great.
Well, and we just went to his basic training graduation, so he's in infantry school now. And right after that, he goes to RASP, which is the Ranger Assessment Program. So, but I will say, that boy still loves his mama like nobody's business. So.
Of course. But I think that's beautiful. And I saw that about your son.
Yeah.
Did you have allergies when it was happening? Or did you keep a stoic face?
Yeah, some dumbass was cutting onions. No, I kept it together though. I'm very proud of him though.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of him. But yeah.
Would you go back into the military? If you could do it all over again?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Which is interesting because I got out of such political frustration with the military and general frustration with respect to the way we conduct foreign policy. Mm-hmm. But no, if I had to do it again, I would. And I had a lot of people, let me turn this off. I had a lot of people kind of ask me about that. It was kind of this idea of, well, with everything going on, and I was like, okay, with everything going on, do you want to be defended by the sort of people that would only join if the political conditions were correct, or do you want to be defended by people that love the country regardless? And not to mention that, but it's also this question of, I don't get to tell him whether or not to do it. Mm-hmm. He's got to think about this. He's got to pray about it. He's got to decide what he feels led to do, and then he's got to do it. And then, don't get me wrong. I was nervous. Of course, now he's. I don't know if you saw, but on Twitter when I did this thing where I was proud dad moment, I was putting on his patch. Underneath that, Pete Hegseth said, "Hey, congratulations, Luke. Do us proud." And I was like, I just screwed you over with all of your drill sergeants for the rest of basic training.
Oh, no. Yeah, I feel like only somebody who's in the military knows exactly what you mean by that.
Yeah.
Oh, you're Nick's son.
Yeah.
Huh? Oh, yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
I'm curious because you talk a lot about masculinity and young men today and what's happening in the world around us. And yet you've raised a young man that seems to be really on the path of being strong and resilient and the things we think of as traditional masculinity. How do you think you raise a son today to be that? What did you do?
I don't, not to be flippant, I don't think it's all that difficult as long as you just ignore everything modern culture is telling you with respect to masculinity and boys. I think a lot of it is somewhat inherent. Those masculine traits are there for a reason. I think God put them there for a reason. It's like anything else. Whether you're talking masculine traits or feminine traits, there's a positive manifestation and there's a negative manifestation. So yeah, if you use your tendency towards strength, aggression, and competition to hurt other people to get what you want, you're an ass clown, right? But who's going to stop you? Well, you're going to be stopped by probably a different man that also has that, inclination towards strength, power, aggression, competition, but is actually applying it toward a noble purpose. And I think young men more than anything want a noble purpose, and they want not just something to fight for, they want someone to fight for. I've said this before when I was talking to a group of predominantly young women. I said, look, it is not your job to make a man a good man, but you will be shocked at how much influence you have over that process. So, yeah.
What do you think influence young women have over young men and turning them into strong men?
Oh, I'd die for my wife. But more than that, I'll live for her. Right, like that's another thing too. We very quickly move to I'd die for something, because it's a representative of the ultimate sacrifice, right? Like love hath no greater than this than that you give your life for a friend. But the fact that my wife wants me. I want to be a better man. I want to live up to the image that my wife has for me, and so I think speaking, again, not speaking for all of masculinity, but I've just noticed that when a man has a woman that he just desperately is in love with, he'll move mountains, right? He'll absolutely move mountains. And so I do think they play just an incredible role in that. I mean, the flippant kind of joke is that men civilize the wild and women civilize men. Yeah. But there's something to that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think with my husband, for instance, it's the same. I mean, he's a total animal, super aggressive and all over the place, but the most loyal, hardworking person I know. And I do think, there's no stronger foundation than having an incredible partnership. I'm always kind of in awe, actually, of people who do it by themselves. I cannot imagine, actually.
I don't get it. I don't get it. And I understand that some people are just incredibly driven and focused. But I was speaking to a group of students a while back, and I talk a lot about freedom and liberty, especially from the political side. But I actually told them, I think I need to apologize that I've placed so much emphasis on freedom, not because it's not a worthy goal, but because ultimately it's the freedom to do what? And what you're going to find is that most of the things in your life that give you purpose and meaning don't give you more freedom, they give you more responsibilities. Being married does not make you freer. It does make you better, especially if you have a good marriage and a relationship. Having kids definitely does not make you freer. Like quite the opposite, I assure you. Nothing gives you less freedom with respect to your time and money than having children. And yet, hold your child and you wouldn't trade it for a heartbeat. And so, I think that meaning and purpose that we get through that relationship, not just in trying to attain a goal, but trying to build something with another person, is incredible.
Yeah, not easy, but worth it.
Oh, yeah.
1,000%. Yeah. It's interesting because we're going to jump all around, but I was thinking about you in particular. You were a Green Beret, you won elected office in a difficult to win election. You've held that for many years, millions of followers online. To start sort of more broadly, how did you train yourself to become the type of human that accomplishes the things that they want to?
That's interesting. One of the things I told my son before he went off to basic training, and especially because of the field he wants to go in with Ranger Regiment, where now you get into like high attrition rates and whatnot. What I told him is the vast majority of people I saw fail throughout the military, and you could argue throughout business or whatever, they beat themselves far before anybody else did. I mean, it really was a mindset, and that's almost become cliche, but I can't emphasize it enough. I've watched people that were smarter than me, stronger than me, in many respects more capable than me, fail because something got to them. It was either a desire for comfort or safety or security or whatnot, but they went into a training environment or they went into some sort of competitive environment with the idea of, I'll do it up to this point versus I'm not going home without it. And that's a far different mindset. Because I think in one set, you are looking for a reason to quit, or you're looking for a price where it's too high and you don't do it anymore. And on the other, it's more of, well, no, the goal has to be achieved. So how do we adapt to changing circumstances in order to achieve it? My wife and I were very adamant about that when we got, married. And it was this idea that it's the whole, Cortez burned the ships. And that's not to say there aren't situations where you adapt means, okay, this was not a good idea, now do something else, right? That's not the same as quitting. Yeah. But yeah, I think a big part of it is just saying that when you're going to do something, it's not just about attaining it for its own sake. It's about if you are doing something for which you have given your word or for which other people are dependent upon you to achieve, you need to look at that very differently. I think it's interesting, and this doesn't just apply to men, but when I speak about it in terms of young men, somebody asked me, like, what does it mean to be a man? And I said, well, when somebody says, man up, be a man, your mindset automatically goes to overcome difficulties, problems, pain, and danger in order to accomplish your mission and uphold your word. That's what it is. So, okay, that's the mindset that you need to have is when I am obligated to something, not just by, desire or not just by, profit, even though I think profit's a fine thing. But when there's also a component of honor there, well, then you have to live up to that.
Yeah. We have a dear friend, Kevin, who is on one of the teams, one of the tough teams, and his younger brother went in as well. And he called Kevin to ask for advice, like, what should I do to get in? And Kevin, who is a man of few words in general, brilliant, actually, like a kind of a philosopher warrior. But he just responded, just don't quit, and then hung up. And I remember
Very
the time
laconic.
being like, I was like, Kevin, that's like, isn't there more advice? And Chris was like, one, no, let us handle the advice here. Yeah. And two, no, that is kind of it. It's not here's a 42-step program in order to ensure you're properly trained to not quit buds. It's just don't quit.
Yeah.
But how do you, in life, how do you train for that? It seems like so many people these days, you don't keep your word to yourself, which I think is your most important word. And you quit all the time, actually, on everything that you want. Like, how does one become a person who says, I don't quit?
I think part of it is you practice doing hard things. You practice doing good things that are difficult that you wouldn't otherwise want to do, and then you insist on doing them. And once you build a habit of doing it, I think it becomes easier. And there's studies out now that demonstrate that this impacts parts of your brain that will, essentially grow and develop and develop more resilience in you in order to overcome difficult things once you do it. But I also think it has something to do with, there has to be some motivating factor beyond yourself. Again, for me on some level, that's the faith component, right? It's the idea that there is objective truth and there is objective right and wrong. And I have an obligation to live up to the good, to the right. And then when you look at the people around you, whether it be your spouse or whether it be your kids or whether it be other people that depend on you, that becomes kind of that physical manifestation of that esoteric principle. And I think when you combine those two things and you get used to actually accomplishing those things, you develop habits and you develop reputation and you have a natural inclination to want to defend those things. And you also see the positive benefits as a result. But the reason why I say there has to be something beyond just whatever your objective is or your material gain or whatever else is because at some point you're going to be asked to do something that is not going to benefit you materially. In fact, it could cost you quite a bit, but it is the right thing to do. And in that moment, when you've developed a reputation and you've developed the ability to continue to do that regardless, that's where I think it really takes hold and it becomes such a core part of your identity that to do the opposite is unthinkable.
I love that. We have a creative contrarian thinking. It's like 13 things that we live by, 13 because we think if you keep working, it turns out you get a little luckier.
Yeah.
And so,
Go figure.
number. Yeah. And one of them is, do the right thing even and maybe especially when it hurts.
Yeah.
And there is something beautiful about, I think at this point, my husband and I try to have friendships that are few but deep.
Yep.
And the ones that we have, one of the core, components of a friend that I know that I want to travel through time with is, have you ever stood up in a way that I can see somewhere, whether that's publicly or otherwise, and done something that was against your own self-interest, but seemed like the right thing to do? And if somebody has not ever done that, that I can see, that is an indicator to me that we might not get along.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think, you've done that multiple times, obviously going into political office, and now you talk about things online. You got a lot of people who love you online and a lot of people who want to give you some feedback. They got some points that they'd like to make.
I've got an interesting comment section.
Yeah, I know. I always tell people, if you ever feel bad, just go to my comment section. It's real fun in there. But I think, one of the things that I found most interesting about you as I went down the rabbit hole is this focus on faith and family that you have. And it's not just for young men, although you talk about masculinity a lot. You were a girl dad before you were a boy dad, multiple times over. And so for all of the young women listening out there who either have a husband and want that husband to be an incredible girl dad or want, a dad that was incredible themselves, what advice do you give to men raising daughters?
Oh gosh, we did a whole series on this on just that topic, men raising daughters. Some of it was on our YouTube channel, some of it was at an event I was just speaking at. So I usually started off with this funny story where I had a little girl, and I remember there was two people that I asked for advice. Right, the first one was my wife. Because I figured, hey, you're a woman. you probably have some advice on what you like, you want dad to do. The second one was the biggest man whore I served with in the military. And this dude, good operator, right? But this guy, I remember just walking to him like, okay, I don't know what you say, but one day my daughter may find herself in this situation and I want her to be able to identify you. So how do I ensure that whatever it is you do or say that apparently works so well doesn't work on her? And it's like,
did he laugh?
Oh yeah, no, he didn't. He was actually, he was kind of, again, another one of those kind of like laconic guys, not necessarily, not a bunch of bravado. He went for more the mysterious, thing. And, kind of the cigarette, just like, tell your daughter you love her, because if you don't, someday somebody who doesn't will, and they'll believe him. And like a part of you wants to be like, dude, I just want to beat the piss out of you right now. But I asked, and he gave a damn good answer.
He was honest.
And yeah, he was. And look, I have no doubt that if we went back, we would find at some point where he was young, naive, and in love and got his heart broken, and now everyone's going to pay for it, right? Not that excuses anything. I'm just saying that we generally find reasons why people, turn out the way they do. But so I used to always tell people, tell your daughter you love her. And I tell this to men specifically. I say, guys, we have this problem. I said, we always get frustrated with our wives, right? Because why won't they just tell us what they want? We want to do it. Just tell us what we want. Like, I know you think we should know, but we don't. I said, and then you don't tell your daughter you love her because, well, you go to work. You provide a house. You're working 60 hours a week for her. Doesn't she understand that's love? Maybe not, dude. How about you just tell her? Tell your daughter you love her. Obviously, you've got to do the things that actually demonstrate that love is genuine, but you need to verbalize it with your daughter. You need to be able to spend that time. You need to be able to do goofy things with your little girl. When she's 2 and 3, you need to be wearing the stupid little feather boa and tiara and drinking whatever the hell that was. It wasn't tea, right? But she thinks it is, right? And you need to be spending that time. And some guys will be like, do they really remember, does your 17-year-old daughter really remember what you did at 3? I said, your 5-year-old daughter remembers what you did at 3. Your 7-year-old daughter remembers what you did at 5. Your 10-year-old daughter remembers what you did at 7. By the time you get to 17, you have established such a pattern of love and commitment to her that, of course, she's going to want to talk to dad about things. Of course, she's going to want to ask dad about things. And of course, she's not going to want to do things or find herself in situations that could be harmful for her and that would hurt you. I said, so tell your daughter you love her and demonstrate that you love her. The second thing is you have to be able to tell your daughter the truth. Like, you have to be a source of wisdom and truth for your daughter, because there's going to be this inclination among friend groups and everything else to like prop up and do it. You need to be the person to where when she comes to you with a problem, even when, and it starts when they're little and she's trying to figure something out or she wants to talk with you about it, listen. Don't immediately try to solve anything. Listen to the problem, because she's giving you insight into the way that she sees the world. And when you establish that pattern of being willing to listen, she's going to ask you to help figure it out. I said, again, this is another issue we oftentimes get into with our wives, right? Where they're like, for the love of God, honey, can you please get to the point, right? And it's like, well, sometimes the point is just going through that process of understanding the circumstances, what's going on, the way she sees it. It's like, again, God has designed her to look at all of these different emotional cues that are going on within an environment that is an incredible asset while we're sitting here going, I just want the facts. The emotional components that are impacting these decisions are part of the facts. And so listen to them, go on that journey with them as they explain everything that was going on and what they witnessed and what they saw and what they observed. Ask them questions about it. Why did you ask that? Or why did that happen? Or what do you think about that? But at the end, when they're asking an honest question, you have to be able to tell them the truth. And sometimes that's dad's job, right? Is we give hard truths. But if you give the hard truth in love and they're convinced that it's always for their benefit, they're far more likely to be able to accept the truth. And so then the third thing is that you got to be willing to hear the truth from them. And so there's going to be times where they catch you. You did something wrong. You screwed up. You taught them a standard and you fell short of it. Now, when they bring that up, now they should do so respectfully, because there is a respect that should be, owed to a mother and a father. But if they do it respectfully, and your attitude is, I'm in charge here, or what do you know about raising kids, or what do you know about the circumstance, or you're just a kid, or whatever. If they're right and you're wrong, and you don't take that opportunity to look at them dead in the eye and be like, you're right, I apologize, and I want to thank you for having the courage to come and talk to me about it. In part because I see so many parents where they'll say, my kids went off to college, or my kids went off here, or they went that, and we didn't raise them that way. And then you start to ask about, okay, how did you raise your kids? And what you realize is you didn't teach your kids values. You taught your kids an authority structure. And the authority structure was you're in charge. And what you say goes, and what you say go. And you know what? Maybe that's fine as long as you're in charge, because you love them. What happens when it's the college professor? What happens when it's the bad boss? What happens when it's the politician or whatever else it is? When all of a sudden they're the authority figure, not you anymore. So you got to be able to tell them the truth, and they've got to be able to tell you the truth, and know that you're a safe place to come to tell them the truth. I said, and what I've found, I'm not saying any of this is a silver bullet, right? But what I found is that when you build trust with your kids younger, because I think so many dads especially think, well, once they get to a certain age, then I step in and I do more. Nope. It starts immediately. It starts holding them as they're a baby. When you build that connection over time, that connection doesn't go away. The last thing I'll kind of say on that, I think there's a lot of parents that think, how do they compete with culture or friends or Hollywood or the internet? And I think there's this growing tendency to say, well, I hand my kids over to the experts for their education. You are the primary educator in your child's life. That's not to say that you can't outsource certain topics or subject matter to other people. But if you're just handing your kids over to the internet, that's what you're doing. You're not giving them access to the internet. You're giving the world access to them through the internet. And they are not capable of understanding certain concepts or being exposed to certain ideas at these tender young ages where they have not developed the mental or intellectual capacity to be able to deal with it. And so you need to protect your kids from that environment and train them up in a way to where they're prepared for it when they see it. And so if you can foster all of that, the one thing I will tell people is, you'll be shocked at how easy the teenage years are. Like people, oh my gosh, teenage years. I'm like, my teenage years with my daughter were easy, absolutely easy. I keep saying, and then one more thing, and then I always have one more thing. But the big thing for dads too, is relationships, because that's the thing dads. Again, what was the first question I asked about? How do I prevent my daughter from falling for a guy like you? Mm-hmm. I'll never forget the first time we homeschooled our kids, but there was one year we put them in a public school, and we took them out immediately after. But it was fifth grade. My oldest daughters were walking down the dirt road. She just got off the bus, and I can hear her talking to Tina, my wife, going, and Tina's saying, "You need to tell Daddy." Go tell Daddy. She's like, "I don't want to tell Daddy." Well, I can hear this. I'm like, "What do you not want to tell Daddy?" She goes, "Well, a boy at school likes me." I said, "Okay. Do you like this boy?" And she starts to blush a little bit. I said, "Sweetheart, it's okay that you like the boy, right? Like, what did you tell him?" She goes, "Well, I'm not allowed to date." We actually had really strict rules around dating.
Yeah.
Ones that nowadays everybody would consider like horribly draconian. And I said, "What did you tell him?" She goes, "Well, I'm not allowed to date, and because that's not what we should be focusing on right now, we should be focusing on." I said, "Okay, that's good." "What did he say?" He said, "He'll wait." And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, all right. You're either a really nice kid or you're a little punk, right? And I said, "Well, sweetheart, let me tell you something. He sounds like a nice boy. And the fact that he likes you tells me a ton about him. Because who wouldn't love you, sweetheart? You're pretty, you're intelligent, like you're a good person. Like what boy wouldn't like you or be attracted to you? Like that's obvious." I said, "Do you know why we tell you you should not date until you're actually ready to consider marriage?" And she goes, "Well, yeah, it's the right thing to do." And when I said, "It's more than that, sweetheart. I don't want anyone playing with your heart. And I don't want you playing with anybody else's heart. I want you to respect your body. I want other people to respect your body. And I want you to respect the body of other people." Mm-hmm. I said, "Because one day I want you to have what your mother and I have. One day I want you to have that relationship that is just so strong. You are going to be so insanely in love that you're not going to think it was possible. You're not going to think it was possible." I said, and in that day where you meet that man that God has for you, that you're going to build a relationship with, I promise you I'll say yes. I promise you I'll say yes to that guy when he's worthy of you. I said, but in the meantime, I want you to be thinking about that. I don't want you to be thinking about this as some sort of frivolous thing that you engage in for fun. I want you to think about what you really could have. And that was enough for both my girls. I never had pushback on any of it. And I think that's one of the big problems that a lot of men have, a lot of dads have, is they really lean into this idea of, I'll kill anybody that touches my daughter, which, by the way, not a bad instinct. I always tell dads, your daughter might not want you to beat up her boyfriend, mm-hmm. but she wants to know you could, yeah. and she wants to know you would, right? She wants that security from dad. Yeah. But there is something. I mean, you know this better than anyone, especially from the business world. Delayed gratification. If you can look at that thing that you actually want, and when it comes to marriage, that is so incredibly important. Mm-hmm. And if you can prioritize making that what it's supposed to be, and then doing the proper things, I think it keeps kids focused on what they could have as opposed to all the frivolous stuff that they see going on.
It's beautiful. You also explained the why to your daughters, which I think is so important, and not just giving them that authority. Yeah. No, you can't because I said so. Mm-hmm. Not very useful. No, but instead going a step deeper and saying, here's this why. Does that resonate with you? Do you understand? Yeah. I mean, even at our company, it's always, well, you can tell somebody that's informing. Mm-hmm. You can then have somebody make sure they actually understand. So that's, hey, do you understand what I said? Not I just told you, but do you understand? And then finally, it's agreement. No, I agree. We're on the same page. Yeah. And maybe even one step further in business, I don't know what that would be in life, but incentive alignment. So are you also selfishly incentive aligned to do the thing that now you understand, agree with, and are informed about? Yeah. And if you can hit all four of those levels, then you have people who just continue to work on the path.
Oh, totally agree.
By the way, if you're building a business right now and you're stuck or you want to break out to the next level, maybe you're not where you want to be today. Believe me, I've been there many, many times. I want you to know I got you. We help thousands of business owners a year figure out how to scale to the next level. One of my favorite mentors said,
Every level you have, there's just a higher level and a higher devil. And so if you've been in business for a while and you're doing 6, 7, or 8 figures, there's probably one thing standing in the way of your next level. That's why we host growth and scale workshops 4 times a year throughout the year in Austin, in Miami, in San Diego, and you may be a fit to come to one of them. If it sounds interesting to you to get help on how to scale your business to the next level, you can reach out to my team at the link in the show notes. We believe in you builders, but we also believe that it's a lonely road and you can't do it by yourself.
You said something else too, once where you said that it was about arguing with your spouse. And you said something, it was like, oh, absolutely spot on. It was this idea that it's not about winning arguments with your spouse. It's about both of you winning. Or because if your wife loses or your husband loses in the argument, you both lose. The marriage loses.
It's very true.
Yeah,
and I don't profess to have a perfect marriage or never argue.
Oh, nobody does.
No. And so I'm always, it's the same as you, I'm sure. I'm always really careful about saying like, this is what I got figured out right now. Let's check back.
Yeah.
In 80 years, let's see like how we're doing. And like, was this the right thing? But all the things resonate a lot with me from you and your daughter because my father and I are very, very close.
Yeah.
He's here in town right now, in fact.
Great.
And he works with me in my business. Yeah. And he's one of my closest confidants. And, I'm now 38. And so he did all the things that you mentioned. And, in some ways, I think even him and I are closer than him and my brother. We're just a lot alike.
Yeah.
And, when I was younger, I think a lot of people would say, men would say, I can't wait to have a boy. I want to have a boy. I want to have a boy, which I totally get. There is some sort of primal, handing down the torch, the name, etc. But also there's something really incredible about father-daughter relationships.
Oh, there's a reason why they say something about that, that mother-son relationship and that father-daughter relationship. Because there's something special. Again, another thing I tell guys, especially tough guys, right? You think you're a tough guy, then you have a daughter and you find out what a sap you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Like all of a sudden you're the one like, little piggy tails and like, it's, because there's something about that. There's something unique about that relationship that brings out the tenderness in a man. And oh yeah, it's incredible. With both my daughters, it's funny. My oldest daughter is married now. My youngest daughter is graduating high school, and there's it's sitting down and just having those discussions about their day and what they're thinking and why, and going through the problem solving component. And it is amazing when you can embrace the idea that men and women have different strengths. That's not to say that they can't have similar strengths or thrive in a variety of fields. But it's amazing how complementary the attributes are. And I feel like there's just been this competitive focus between men and women. It's like, that's not what it's supposed to be. It is so complementary. And once you just embrace it for what it is, like my wife, I learned the hard way. When my wife says something's off, something is off. And I can remember early on in my marriage going, well, why do you say that? Why do you think that? Explain it to me. Babe, I just don't know. I haven't. And again, I wasn't taking the time to let her actually talk through what it was that she was observing and picking up on that I wasn't picking up on. Yep. And I have since learned that just because she might not be able to articulate what's wrong in that situation yet, there's something wrong. Like I have learned to trust my wife's discernment, again, the hard way, by not doing it because she couldn't present, a robust and comprehensive enough argument, only to find out a week later, 6 months later, a year later, oh, holy crap, she was right. There was something wrong. There was something off there.
And you guys were high school sweethearts, right? Married for 26 years?
26 years, yeah.
That's wild.
19 and 20 when we got married.
Do you have some comments about dads in general? And I think I saw somewhere you said you think dads should be dangerous.
Yes.
Tell me why.
Because they're worthless if they're not. I'll elaborate. A primary job of a man, one of the primary jobs of a man, is to protect and to provide. I have yet to find a single woman that is genuinely attracted, to a man that she doesn't feel safe around. In fact, she's more likely to be attracted to a guy that she doesn't feel safe around, but she knows can like actually handle themselves in a physical altercation than she is a super nice guy that's absolutely weak. And I think that should just tell us something about psychology, and I think it should just tell us something about the created order. But a simpler way to put it is, if your family was in danger and you had to call another man to get him out of it, how would you feel about yourself?
Oof.
Right? How do you think your wife or kids would ultimately see you? I don't want to be seen as a nice guy, right? Nice guys finish last. You know why? Because they should, right? Nothing, as I look at it, the mentors in my life, whether it's Christ or other heroes or role models I've had, none of them are people I would describe as nice guys. Compassionate, yes. Empathetic, absolutely. Generous, yes. But also capable of intense and focused violence when necessary. And so you absolutely have to be dangerous, never toward your family, but on behalf of them.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about Tim Kennedy
Yeah.
down below, but Tim's become a dear friend, and I think I loved his line about, I cannot tell you the amount of violence a man has to go through in order to be this kind, this soft.
Yeah.
And so I think, I mean, I certainly find it with my husband too. There's nothing better than, I remember, you know how people talk on the internet? You have trolls sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So I have trolls sometimes on the internet. I've never actually met one in real life. Everybody's really nice. I always have a good time. You probably have some different experiences in politics.
Politics is a little bit different.
Yeah, but everybody has always been great. I mean, incredible builders. It's so cool when I meet members of our community. But there was one guy on the internet that was just not very nice. And what's wild is Chris met him. He's going to kill me for telling this story, but he met him at an event.
Oh, really?
And the guy didn't recognize, and it was kind of a well-known-ish guy. Chris wouldn't do this to somebody random.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, this guy, purports himself as somebody
and
important.
should have known better.
Should have known better.
Yeah.
And he came up to Chris, mistake number one,
Yeah.
and was like, I know you from somewhere, man. Like, how do I know you? And Chris was like, dear baby Jesus, what do I do in this moment? Please let me choose the path of light. And didn't do anything crazy, which younger Chris might not have done that.
Yeah.
But, kind of pulled him in closely and said, like, I'm Codie Sanchez's husband.
Yeah.
And then you would know this because you're a fighter, whatever you can do, like a wrist lock, which doesn't look like much, right? But can be cripplingly painful from what I understand. So the guy squeals apparently and falls down to the ground.
Yeah.
And then he's at our friend's event. Yeah. And so Chris calls me. And the guy sort of runs off afterwards and goes to our friend who's hosting the event. And it's like, this guy, and they look over at Chris and like, oh, him? And they're like, well, what did you do? Because he would not do that unless there was some reason. And Chris called me afterwards and he's like, you're either going to be really mad at me or maybe not mad at me, and tells me the story. And I kind of chuckled. But there was I wasn't sure how I would respond, because I don't want somebody brawling or being triggering and doing inappropriate things. But you're right. In that moment, I was like, that's my man.
It was controlled violence.
Yeah. I would do just about anything in the world for him, because how few people would actually, when it comes to it, stand up and be like, unacceptable behavior. Yeah. Not allowed.
Yeah. I have to tell you, the best, one of the most incredible compliments my wife ever gave me is like, 1 minute, it was just out of nowhere too. She just stopped me and she goes, you need to know that you make me feel safe.
Oof.
I was like, well, I can go on that compliment for a year, right? Like that's all it takes, right? But yeah, what Tim says with this idea of, it's another thing when young men ask me, like, how should I be trained? I said, have you ever been hit in the face? Have you ever been punched in the face? No. I'm like, probably should be at some point, right? I'm not saying you got to be, a UFC champion like Tim Kennedy, but you need to learn how to fight. And you need to go through what it looks like to really come up against that concept of fight or flight and to choose fight. Yeah. And when you can do it and when you can be more competent at it, you are far more likely to utilize it in a way that is both effective and measured. And that's a perfect example of what your husband did. It was measured violence in a moment that didn't cause any sort of permanent damage or whatnot, but let somebody know. And quite frankly, we have too little of that in society right now. That's why you have so many trolls, is because they believe they can operate in this world where they can say whatever they want and get away with it without any sort of physical consequence. And I think for most of human history, and to some degree still today, every man understands that violence is always an option. Mm-hmm. when we have, there's a reason why there's a certain level of politeness that, even though it doesn't look like that sometimes, because physical violence is always an option between men, mm-hmm. and you better be capable of it. So
yeah, and especially, I mean, you see this because you travel all around. Obviously, you're in politics in the legislature now. You've chosen to serve in a different way. You've been doing that for some time. Mm-hmm. And I imagine often when you're at these university campuses or when you're going to, parts of your district, mm-hmm. You encounter people that vehemently disagree with you one way or the other. So I guess I'd be curious, what do you do in situations? What do you see? What do you see out there right now when you're talking to people in your district or you're talking to people about politics?
I have a good district. I have a pretty it's rural Virginia, right? Mm-hmm. And so I don't run into too many situations where people come up and are overly verbally abusive. They may be a little bit confrontational. The closest it ever got in my district in Little Culpeper was during the BLM riots. And but what's interesting is that we didn't have any riots in our town. And part of the reason why we didn't have any riots in our town is because we had marches, we had organizations and demonstrations. That's fine. Sure. But part of the reason why you didn't see cities burning or things getting graffitied or bricks going through windows is you wouldn't have had to worry about the cops showing up, right? Our community would have showed up because you're not doing that to my neighbor. You're not doing that to my protest all you want. The moment you get violence is going to be met with violence. Mm-hmm. And again, that's a necessary component within society because of the barbarians, and I'm not suggesting that everyone that engaged in a BLM march was a barbarian, but if you're a rioter, if you're mm-hmm. someone that believes in destroying things, the barbarians are kept in check by the good people that are willing to use physical violence in order to maintain order. Mm-hmm. I've had instances where people got a little bit hostile on the question, but here's the other thing I'll say is I've never been in a situation where you've had the paid protesters come in because that's mm-hmm. what a lot of this is. It's nowhere near as organic as it's made out to be. Mm-hmm. When you see people standing up and shouting and screaming and whatnot, that's usually a very organized effort. Typically what happens is when I showed up to my last town hall, probably 45, maybe 50% of the audience were people that showed up to protest me. But the ones that were really, really loud and kind of obnoxious, they were all outside. The people that actually came in and sat down that wanted to ask me questions, some of them just wanted to hear from their delegate. Others wanted to try to catch me. There was one guy that started yelling at me from the audience, and I stopped answering a question. I looked at him and I said, "No, keep it up. I want my family to see, I want my kids to see exactly what that looks like." Mm. He shut up right away. So part of it was just about understanding what are they after right now, and what are the various intellectual, verbal, or debate tactics that you can use to try to engage in a civil discussion. And if they don't, you can address it other ways. But one of the things that I've had times where I've had people that were very upset, and it's you're a politician, you work for me, and I'll stop them and be like, let me just explain something. I don't know who taught you that you can talk to me that way simply because I represent you, but it isn't true. Mm. So if you want to yell and scream, that's fine, but don't expect me to sit here and be like, "Oh, sir, I understand your concern." No, you're an ass, because that's not how people talk to each other. Yeah. So I'm a man, you're a man, right? You want to talk to me like a man, then do that. And understand that I'm not going to sit here and believe in some sort of sacred thing where you get to scream at me because I happen to be a representative. Mm. And I've noticed that a lot of times, there was one time in particular online where I had a pretty bad troll who called me a coward over a vote. Mm. That is a word you do not call another man unless you're willing to fight about it. Mm. And so he calls me a coward. And it was funny. It wasn't even for a vote I took. And I said, "You seem to be incredibly courageous online. I look forward to meeting you in person to see if you were as equally brave in person." Mm. And my wife looks at me, she goes, "Did you just threaten a constituent online?" I said, No, I did not. I just said I would be eager to see if he was equally courageous in person. And the whole tone kind of immediately went down. So
Yeah.
That's been my experience anyways.
God, I mean, I do think, though, you're right. There's something about, it's almost like anything in life. I have a friend, Alex Hormozy, who has a quote that's basically like, there's no such thing as, what is that called where you... imposter syndrome.
Oh.
There's no such thing as imposter syndrome. It's really just if you have the reps, you don't get worried about doing the thing. And so I'm not sure I always agree with that. I also think it's different for men and women. But the part that I think is interesting is when you have all the reps, the thing that you propose to have the reps at, you're not so scared to have the confrontation.
Yeah.
And so some of the part about being a strong man, or I think a competent human, is like if somebody comes at me and says, or if somebody comes at you and says, hey, you haven't really done this thing in business, you're not competent. If you've actually done the thing, and you're quite competent, it's very hard to rattle you. You can say, I would love, anytime you would like to discuss in depth or compare balance sheets, I'm happy to, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a beautiful thing for young men. It's like, you don't actually have to be big and strong and violent. You just have to take reps, and it's the same thing in business.
I think my favorite, I'm going to say I kind of disagree with Alex on the idea that there's no such thing as imposter syndrome, because I know I think this is really common among combat vets. I think it's really common among military personnel. Like you asked me earlier, like, do you ever miss it? And it's like, yeah, I do. I mean, here it is. I've been out since 2009. And theoretically, if you looked at my resume on that, it's like, well, okay, what do you got to be, what do you have to doubt yourself on within those credentials, right? Green Beret, Ranger, like combat. Well, because somebody else did something more, or somebody else did something more dangerous or whatnot. And it's like, well, did I really prove myself? Did I really? So that's a constant nagging feeling in the back of your mind. Did I really prove myself? I would say the other thing too is I got to a point, late 30s, early 40s. And I remember someone saying, oh, well, Nick, you were a Green Beret. I wouldn't mess with you. And I was thinking, when was the last time I went to the gym? Ooh. When was the last time I actually grappled? When was the last time I actually shot? And I started thinking about this. It's like, it's been a while. Do I have capabilities or do I have stories? And I realized that then I'm like, no, I got some good stories. But if I am living off the reputation of those stories, well, then I'm not that man anymore. And I still want to be that man. And so that is a quest of constant improvement. And but Alex Hormozy had a quote that I really loved where he said, he had all these young influencers that were asking him about how to be successful. And he goes, go out and do something and then talk about what you did. Yeah. Don't preach to people about what they should do. Hey, I went out and I did this, and this is what I learned from it. And I was like, gosh, I love that. I love that statement. Yeah.
It's so true. Yeah, a lot of young people today want to be content creators online. And I think be careful what you wish for, because it does feel like hooked into the matrix. I'm sure you feel the same thing. There will be a point for sure where I'm very willing to share all the things and be online as much as I am now, because I think this is one of my areas of purpose.
Yeah.
I think that if I was younger and people had told me how to make money and what was possible, and actually talked about the thing that we're not allowed to talk about, politics, religion, money, faith, then we might actually progress things further. And so even after I've made a lot of money, I want to continue to talk about it, because we shouldn't stop. But it's not so fun just talking on the internet all the time. Like, you can become a egotistical narcissist. And simultaneously, for those young people, my thought is the same thing, which is go live an incredible life.
Yeah.
Go do something adventurous. Go take huge risks. And that will lead to content so good, you will never have to sit in a room and come up with ideas.
Yeah. Well, and with what you do, like you are constantly engaged in the thing that you're talking about. Oh. It's talking about the thing is not the primary thing that you do, even though I think it's an incredibly valuable thing that you do, because I was raised by a nurse and a cop, and then I went into the military. None of those are entrepreneurial. And
True.
And look, I think we elevate them within our society in a way that's good, sometimes excessive. But for some reason, at the same time, we have denigrated entrepreneurialism. We've denigrated. I mean, Calvin Coolidge said the business of America is business. And like I find your journey and how you actually got into finance and entrepreneurialism and everything else fascinating, because it wasn't triggered by this natural inclination early on to just want to make a lot of money. I mean, it was like doing research in journalism and human trafficking. And I've always had this like immense respect for entrepreneurs, because for me, it was always, that was terrifying. Jumping out of planes, like kicking in doors, flashbanging in rooms, that was exciting. Possibly like risking your entire financial security in order to build something with no guaranteed paycheck, that was terrifying to me. And because it terrified me, it pissed me off. Right. And so I wanted to learn more. And that's what I love watching your channel, because I feel like, okay, I understand what she's explaining and why. And it's the unapologetic, no, this is a good thing. This is how you actually build the exchanging of goods and services that people can voluntarily choose to do business with you or not, but only choose to do business with you if it's mutually beneficial. Like, this is another, I hate this phrase. I want, businesses need to give back. The hell does that mean? Like, so let me get this straight. Somebody, did work, built up capital or built up something, and then decided to take this enormous risk in order to provide other people with goods and services to mutual benefit, which inevitably creates massive amounts of opportunities and raises the quality of life. But that's the person that needs to give back. Don't get me wrong, I think it's great when a business chooses to invest in those various things or chooses to engage in philanthropy. But I hate this inclination that if you run a successful business, you owe people something. No, you are providing something that people have voted on with their dollar as being good. Yep. And it's that's one of the things that I'm starting to watch this now, because as happy as I am with a lot of the things my wife and I did with respect to educating our kids on values and critical thinking and work ethic, neither one of us were entrepreneurs. And so now I'm going through this process of, okay, this wasn't something I was able to give my kids to the degree that I wanted. I remember my youngest daughter was very entrepreneurial. Like, she was the one that was making jewelry and doing other things and wanted a little cash register she could do. And we like encouraged that with our homeschool curriculum, but we couldn't impart wisdom from experience. So we had to gain it in other ways. But now I'm looking at it, it's like, no, I really need to lean into this, because it is something that I want to be able to provide opportunities for my kids, but also education for my grandchildren. Because it's a wonderful thing. And quite frankly, I'm pissed that it's been denigrated by our society.
I totally agree. Well, and also, I remember when my husband got out of the military, the military, as far as he explains it, there's a ladder. You take steps, you do things, and the next thing shows up. Yeah. And in business, there is a component of it that could be seen as a ladder, but it is a very haphazard ladder. There is certainly no guarantees, and there's no 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 steps. And seeing into your future is actually quite hard if you choose to take the mantle of ownership. And so I think it's also incredible when vets go out and build businesses, because you guys can handle, you have a very high pain tolerance. Like, the pain tolerance threshold is high. And I think half of entrepreneurship is just pain tolerance plus consistency. And that's it, compounding. Yeah. And so you already have that. But the willingness, I think, to take the risk of like, I have no idea what any of the next steps are whatsoever is different. Maybe special operators, I think you guys get it a little bit more because you had more flow.
There's definitely, we're put in more situations that I think are probably beneficial to an entrepreneurial mindset. But I think the biggest thing that I love listening to talk to entrepreneurs is it's this whole idea of, you're right, there's this ladder. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. And entrepreneurs are like, that ladder sucks. I want a different ladder. I want a slide. I want a rocket ship, right? Like, and it's like, you can do that? And the entrepreneurs are the ones like, I don't know, but I'm going to try it. And I was like, this is it. Look, we don't have any geographical frontiers. We have economic and entrepreneurial and innovative frontiers. And like, I desperately want us to get back to this idea that, look, we have this innate desire in us to engage in conquest. And for most of human history, conquest meant I'm going to kill you and take your stuff. Why? Because I'm stronger. And nobody questioned it. It's not like everyone was sitting around going, well, this just seems kind of immoral. Like, no, Gaul's ours now, right? And before that, Gaul went, sacked Rome. It's like, ve victis, right? Woe to the vanquished. And really what free markets and capitalism and all this does is it allows you to conquer through voluntary cooperation and through the benefit of the people that choose to do business with you. And that's an incredibly positive form of conquest. And so, yeah, I think, again, one of the things I appreciate so much about your channel is, especially from a homeschool parent perspective, I didn't want to send my kids into the vast majority of college university classes to learn about business. I wanted them to learn from people that were going to, one, tell them the truth, not be so overly formulaic that it's like, this is the business school. But no, it's like, this is what I've learned. This is what I've done. This is what works. These are things to look out for. I think it's far more engaging. It's far easier to listen to. It's far easier to learn from. And I get very excited about that.
Well, there's also a lot of studies now that show that, in particular for learning, the worst thing that you can do is have a classroom setting. That actually the best thing that you can do, especially for business and for likelihood of success in business, is to make students do business. The best business school is business. Yeah. And so, I was last night there's a new university here called University of Austin. And then there is University of Texas has a new center called Civitas, which is trying to go head to head with Stanford's Hoover Institute.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it's an incredible organization. They just got a $100 million grant to build out what I think might be a center for. I'll connect you with them. You'll actually love Ryan Streeter, the guy who runs it. And it's all about free markets. That the founding of America was actually good. Shocking, I know. That that freedom for all is actually a huge liberty, and that constitutionalism is quite important for this country. And then a belief that overall in individualism, in the ability for the individual to do good, but that the individual is sovereign. And in the system last night, we had this dinner where we were kind of trying to think about what would education look like if you could choose for children based on what works, data only throughout the entire system. And so they were kind of walking us through it. And you've done this because you've homeschooled. But I mean, could you imagine today, if you think about what they had us do. If you forced me to sit in a room for 8 hours today in one of those plastic chairs, listen to a teacher preach at you, maybe get in, maybe 5 questions in total throughout the day, and that was it. I can't. That's a ring of hell for me.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, the modern public education system was built off of a Prussian model that was designed to make really good conscripts and factory workers. I was once sitting with the mayor of Charlottesville, or the vice mayor of Charlottesville. Now, for those in your audience that are not familiar with Charlottesville, Virginia, it's our version of Portland. Right. So I'm a big free market guy. I'm a big school choice guy. And I'm talking to a guy that is about as progressive as you can get. And I looked at him, I said, can we just put everything aside for a second? I have a question. So you and I both agree that education is important. Absolutely, Nick. Okay, great. Do you think eating's important? And he kind of looks at me like, no, food. Do you think food, starvation's bad, right? Yeah, okay, food's, all right. I want you to imagine that at some point in United States history, the government got together and said, gosh, you know what? Eating is so important that we cannot possibly leave it to the individual or the private sector. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to set up 10,000 government grocery stores, and we're going to assign you a government grocery store based off of your address. Now, when you show up to the government grocery store, you don't actually shop for groceries. Your groceries are provided to you based off of some sort of council that has determined the size of your family and what they believe is the appropriate caloric intake, right? And then you're going to get your bag of groceries. Now, if you're not happy with something in your bag of groceries, not a problem. You're just going to have to show up to a lot of local, state, and perhaps federal board meetings in order to determine what should be in your grocery bag, while the lobbyists for the people that currently have things in your grocery bag spend millions of dollars influencing the process to ensure that nothing ever changes. Oh, by the way, none of the people working in this government grocery store are ever rewarded based off of creativity, ingenuity, or work ethic. They're purely rewarded based off of seniority. Do you think that is a grocery store you would want to be forced to shop at? No. It's exactly what we did with public education. You're assigned a government school based off of your address. You have little to no say over any of the curriculum. If you want to change something, you don't like something, prepare to go through a huge political battle for which you are the underdog every single time. You can't leave this school unless you can afford to, and none of your teachers are rewarded for creativity, ingenuity, or work ethic. It's all about seniority. And we are shocked that this mass production approach to education is not producing the sort of results, optimal results. I worded it, I was actually speaking at a homeschool convention.
By the way, that is such a good counter argument. I'm going to use that everywhere. It makes all the sense in the world.
Well, and the other thing too that I always try to be careful about, I'm not claiming that everybody that has been involved with the public school system or public education or teachers are all evil, mean, nefarious. I'm not saying any of that.
My mom was a 30-year special education teacher.
Right.
She would say the same thing.
My son-in-law is a high school there's some absolute, my grandmother was my 4th grade teacher, phenomenal teacher. But it is a mass production approach to education, and you are going to get mass produced results. Yep. I said, so there's a lot of people right now leaving the public school because they don't like what's being taught. What I tell people is, if the public school overnight taught everything that I loved, I still wouldn't send my kids.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because of the structure that it's been set up to achieve. I said, do you have any idea the amount of time I recaptured with my children? Do you know what it's like to watch your child sitting there just so frustrated over a particular textbook or method of learning and being able to say that day, let's find a different one? Or even better yet, watching your sophomore in high school struggle over a particular subject and then looking at him and being like, what do you want to do with your life? Well, I want to do this, or I want to do this, or I want to do this. You know what none of that requires? This subject. Every kid's got to learn how to read. Every kid's got to learn how to do basic math. Every kid's got to learn how to, to write and effectively communicate and critically think. But imagine being able to have the power to customize an education to both your child's strengths and weaknesses and their overall objectives. It has never been easier to do this. Like, again, I wish I would have found your channel when I was still, because all of my kids are graduated now, right? Now, I still send them stuff, right? But I mean, I would have said, hey, you know what we're going to do? You know what we're going to do today when we study economics and entrepreneurialism? We're going to sit down, we're going to listen to Codie talk about this. And I want you guys to, like my youngest daughter, she developed a business. Yeah. Okay, good. We're going to do this, and we're going to try it, and we're going to learn together, because I've never done it either, but we're going to learn together. And I'm going to give you access to people that know how to do these things. Like, I want people to understand that I know it. We have been taught to feel like this method of education is the preferred one, but in reality, what we've really been told, parents, is this is the safe option if you don't want to be criticized.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
Oh, it drives me nuts.
No, but it's passion is always, I feel like, where there's that like intense burning irritation is usually where change happens. Yeah. It's like so much friction eventually leads to fire. Yeah. And so I think it's really important. And also, I think about it in Austin. We are at the epicenter. I have never lived in a city that has so much happening in regards to education. There's Alpha School, which is like Joe Lamont. That's Elon Musk backing it, where they do. Yeah. You should actually get connected with this guy. It's fascinating. I'm going to go out and visit. Mackenzie's the head of the school. I think she has a lot of similar beliefs to you. Yeah. But essentially, it's 2 hours of computer work a day, with teachers as well. But it's AI directed, based on interests and like a core, sort of the main principles you talked about. You go through a certain set of projects. When you finish those 2 hours worth of projects, or you finish the actual projects, then you move on to your curiosity zones. And those can be both physical, but they can also be obviously intellectual. And a lot of it is hands-on pursuit. So they run small businesses every single day. They write books at a very early age. Yeah. And they actually use modern day technology to augment and to have personalized instruction through AI. It remembers everything that you've learned, and then it figures out where are your weak areas.
What's this called again?
It's called the Alpha School.
Alpha School. Okay.
And I don't go there. I have no affiliation, but I've been really impressed what I've seen. And then you've got Apogee, which is Tim's school. Yeah. And then you've also got University of Austin, which is Joe Lonsdale's school that's pushing back against traditional universities. And then you've got Civitas. So it feels like there's some movement. I mean, I know it's easy, I think, for a lot of people to get pessimistic today. and you see it every day. Especially, it's probably quite hard sometimes not to be pessimistic with all the things you see happening in politics. But do you have a lot of reason? Do you have a reason that you are optimistic about America in the future? Today?
Yeah. I think we're incredibly resilient as a people, and I think we're starting to see a backlash against this kind of like cultural narrative that we've seen that, America sucks and our founding's horrible and we're all a bunch of oppressors. It's the younger generation that is revolting against that right now. It's starting off with young men, but I think young women are coming around to it as well. Now I will say this. I was talking with, I was on trigonometry and they asked me the question, like, what is the biggest thing that nobody's talking about? I said, young men are going to revolt. You cannot tell men that every aspect of their masculinity is bad and toxic and evil and they're responsible for all the world's ills and expect to get away with that long term because they're the ones that fight the wars, police the streets, etc. So they're going to revolt. I don't know which direction yet. Because they're either going to be the people that stand on the wall and guard against the barbarians, or they will be the barbarians. But I see this trend taking place now where I'm seeing this increased popularity with, again, people that are optimistic about business and entrepreneurship. And you're not getting on there talking about the latest numbers in the Dow Jones or the latest numbers in you're talking about, hey, how can you do something that's practical and how do you do it? And did you know that this was like, it was funny. I was saying, I'm like, honey, did you know that laundromats? and she's like, I was watching Codie with you when you. I'm like, oh, I forgot. But it's that excitement because again, it's that idea of conquest, right? I'm going to go out there, I'm going to build something, or I'm going to find something that I'm going to enhance, right, or I'm going to improve upon, and that's exciting because it gets us driving in this positive direction. And I still believe that is built into our system and who we are, and I think that. Unfortunately, our modern culture and a lot of it within academia has just fought against that tooth and nail. But the other thing that we've realized is that the solutions that they've offered us suck. Yeah. Right? It's not like those theories and those ideologies haven't been winning for the past 6 decades. They have, and nobody's happy. And now people are looking around going, I'm tired of what experts are telling me. I want to see what works. And so expertise itself is getting redefined into, I don't want to hear about how many degrees you have. I want to see what you did. Yep. And I want to see what does your family look like? What does your business look like? And if it's working, then now I want to learn more. And I'm starting to see a resurgence of that. And I'm like, oh yeah, oh gosh, I think we have the opportunity to be back in such a big way. Me too. I've said it another way. We can win it all in one generation. Have kids and raise them like this. And all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, this all changes because politically this is a numbers game. So have kids and raise them to believe in these things and to be passionate about them and excited about them. Yeah.
It's interesting. I've been wanting to play around with an idea, to your point, about a lot of the stuff that I talk about now is I think about it as more for adults. It's like, okay, how do you start this business and grow it? Or how do you buy a business? And I try to be accessible at all levels. But to me, there needs to be some resurgence of like, we had the lemonade stand when we were kids, remember? Yeah. But we kind of learned money through that. Yeah. There's still legislation I saw in something like 30 states where lemonade stands are illegal, which is hysterical to me, and you need permits. Yeah. But we'll leave that aside. That can be one of your many jobs in politics. I'll not take that one on. Yeah. But there needs to be a second level to me, which is, you can't really have a lemonade stand every single day. Yeah. And what is the level that we teach the next generation of kids? Yeah. And so is it like, lemonade stand to then having a gumball machine to then having a vending machine to then like, how can we stair step kids into business ownership in the same way we do into home ownership or as we do into school? And so, I mean, if anybody's listening and wants to do something with it, I'm happy to help fund it and get behind you. But I really want, like your kids to have and my kids to have before they go off to college. I want them to have experimented with like 2 or 3 real businesses that wouldn't break the bank. They don't have to become their future at all. Sure. But like teach them the gateway drug to loving entrepreneurship.
There was a program that we had in Culpeper County, Virginia, and it wasn't started by the school system. It was started by entrepreneurs. It was called E Squared. Huh. And what they did was they ran like a Shark Tank style program for students. And it was interesting because when they first tried to do it, the school pushed back. right? Because this is going to take away from classroom time. Oh dear, right? You have an opportunity to talk with some incredibly successful entrepreneurs. Like we had one person that had worked for, like he had ran Jaguar in America. And this guy is offering for free to educate kids on entrepreneurship and take them through the process of starting a business plan and what does it look like to get a patent and what does it look like to compete and what does it look like to sit down in a business negotiation. And so they initially said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to spend all the time. We're going to spend all the effort. And we're going to give the winning team, like each of them are going to get like I forget what it was. So don't quote me on this, but like a $5,000 scholarship. And they're like, well, okay, we'll do it. But we want every team to get something. They're like, no. Actually, they said something better. They said every team does get something. They get knowledge. But the team that wins is what gets the cash prize because that's reality.
Right.
And they let them do it. And it got so popular that it was you would listen to students. In fact, there was one student who he was going to go off to medical school, and he said, "Look," he goes, "I might go into my own practice one day or whatnot." He goes, "But I don't plan to run a business in the sense that we learned here." He goes, "But this is one of the most valuable things I've ever done because it taught me more about what business really is and how it operates and the risk involved and the problem and the amount of government regulations you have to go through." Like it created this very appropriate hostility toward political meddling within the marketplace. But I would just say, like, I think you're already doing part of what you described just by putting out the content you do, because both of us know people that are really, really good at something that can't explain it worth a damn.
That's the hard part. And simplify it.
Yeah, you can, right? That's the, do you know, I just forgot his last name. His name's Nick, but the Fat Electrician. He's on the Unsubscribed podcast with Brendan Herrera and Eli.
Sure.
Okay. So Fat Electrician is his name.
I love this already, by the way.
I would argue one of the best historians we have in the country, right? Not because he's written 1,000 different books on history, but just because his ability to do research, have recall, make the appropriate connections, and then share information in a way that is incredibly entertaining and sticks with you is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. I was on their podcast a while back, mainly because I just, out of the blue on Instagram, I went to Fat Electrician and I said, dude, I love your content. If it had slightly fewer F-bombs, I would use it for my kids, homeschool curriculum. And he goes, you're not the first person to tell me that. But that is what I think is also so exciting about what's going on right now. There are plenty of dangerous, bad, and evil things that happen through the internet. But the internet is a morally neutral tool. It can be used for good, it can be used for ill. But again, from a homeschool perspective, one of the things, or just from, let's say, an alternative education perspective, doesn't have to be homeschool. One of the things I am so excited about is, if I had to do it all over again, you would be a regular part of my kids' homeschool curriculum. Because of your ability to effectively communicate what you have done successfully. And so when you say am I optimistic about America? Yes, I am, because people that never would have been afforded a voice before. Why? Because you're probably not going to drop everything you're doing to go be a business professor. Right. And you're probably not going to be, even if you do get like speaking engagements or you get to show up on the news, what do you get? A 30-second blurb, a 1-minute blurb? But now, because of these open platforms, you have the ability to actually educate and speak to a broad audience. And that's the part where I think when the good ideas come out, eventually they win.
I love that. So we have a tradition here on what we end on. Kyle, can I grab a pen from you? So in the bathroom, pretty please. And the tradition is that we have each of our guests write a little note to young Nick, a little note to young you. Yeah. What would you tell young yourself, maybe, 15, 16, 17-year-old Nick? Yeah. And then we'll give you a couple of minutes to write it. Okay. And then we have you read it to the audience. Okay. And it's a little note to others. Okay. Okay, so we're going to have you read your piece. Okay. All right. Dear Nick, first things first, get back to the gym. Your future wife is way too hot to settle for a dad bod.
Next, start taking your relationship with Christ more seriously. It will not only provide the foundation of your worldview, providing objective truth and morality, but it will provide you with an identity which can weather all storms. Your wife is amazing. Take the time to listen, because the insight and discernment she brings is going to be invaluable to you. Spend more time with your kids, even when you're really tired. And buy Bitcoin. Just trust me.
That's incredible. Nick, it was such a pleasure having you on the podcast. Where do people come to see more of you? Instagram, YouTube, what's your favorite?
Sure. So we're kind of across all the platforms. We probably do the most work on Instagram and YouTube. You can just find us at Nick J. Freitas. But no matter where you're at, TikTok, Facebook, etc., we've got a podcast called Making the Argument. We got another program we do called The Y Minutes, as well as Doge Watch. So regardless of what you're interested in, whether it's family, culture, history, politics, we've probably got something for you on there.
Yeah, I love your Instagram. I was going through some of my favorite old reels of yours, and one of mine was the one where you're like, after 22 years of marriage, my wife told me she no longer loves me, and then you hear your wife in the background go, honey, that's not true. And then you're like, well, she told me to shave my beard, which is the same thing.
It's the same damn thing.
That's so my husband.
Yeah.
Nick, you're the man. Thank you for fighting for freedom and sharing all of these things that typically Green Berets do not share about daughters and love and marriage and the education system and homeschooling. And so I find you to be so unique and so what I think men need in this country and maybe the rest of us. So thank you for being here.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you.
Hey guys, if you've ever thought about buying a business, we've built what I think is the best acquisitions and business buying community and education curriculum in the world. If you've ever thought about wanting to buy or own a business, or if you want to add more businesses to the mix, it's called the Contrarian Community. And what this is the goal is we give you the 3 things that the best business buyers use: your own advisory team, your own investment committee, and a deal team. We get together each week to review deals live and beat up all the deals that you're currently looking at while you simultaneously learn the best way possible, which is called modeling, by seeing other people put together deals. This is how private equity buys businesses. This is how investment teams work. And we're stealing the methods from Wall Street and giving them to you. If this is interesting to you, go to click the link and you can actually talk to my team direct about if this is a fit or not. We can help guide you. The link is in the show description. Hey crew, this is so cool. The podcast is growing like crazy, and it's only actually because of one thing, you. I don't know if you know this, but the only way the Big Deal Pod grows is when you share it with somebody else. We don't do ads, we don't do pay for play, we don't go on other people's podcasts and talk about it. So if you think there was something helpful here, if we made you money, we made you think about your business or life differently, the most beautiful thing you can do for me is share it. And the most beautiful thing you can do for someone that you care about is to share it with them, help them grow alongside you. So please.
I was really bothered with what was being produced in entertainment and food. What the is going on? No one is fixing it. And I was like, I'll fix it.
The content game it is the most competitive game there is. And you are competing for the highest and most expensive commodity that we have in this day and age, which is people's attention.
The number one lesson that I learned, you can become great at anything if you are willing to perform the relentless amount of repetition that it requires to become great at it. The 2 hours of sleep every night, that was not by accident. I didn't accidentally hustle my ass off.
I love this podcast because I love talking to friends about how they made their millions and helping business owners solve their problems. It's fulfilling. I love sharing all the secrets. But when I can't meet in person, there's only one tool I use. It's called Riverside. Riverside ensures I can talk to someone anywhere in the world, recorded in 4K, so the quality of the video matches the quality of the humans you're listening to. Riverside records separate audio and video tracks so we can easily cut out those awkward interruptions that are my least favorite part of interviews. They have in-platform editing software based off a 99% accurate AI transcription. And if that's not simple enough, they take AI one step further for their show notes. It summarizes your entire content into an SEO optimized description and chapters all automatic, saves me a ton of money. So you can use Riverside for podcast interviews, panel discussions, presentations, webinars, more. And best of all, it's simple. Try Riverside for yourself with link in the description. Use code CODY for an exclusive discount. I get a deal, you get a deal. Hey everyone, I'm Codie Sanchez and this is the Big Deal Podcast for those who don't just want to be rich but free and do what it actually takes to get there. Today you're in for a treat with a friend of mine who has accumulated 9 million followers on YouTube, tens of millions across multiple platforms. His name is Joshua Wiseman. If you haven't watched his cooking channels. I don't really know where you've been. You've probably been under a rock. But the reason I brought a chef on to talk to you guys today is for a couple different reasons. One, we talk about food and happiness. Are they correlated? Two, we talk about attention and what it means to be the best in today's world and to go where the attention sits. And the third thing we do is we talk about the differentiation that one can have if one decides to pursue this beautiful thing, which is giving another the gift of sustenance, one of the few things that we need to continue on a go-forward basis. We also go over the deal of the week. If you're not subscribed on YouTube, you should definitely go over there right now because you get to see the inside scoop of a studio that he built out for $500,000 that is so sweet that has racked up way more than 500,000 views.
Bring the band in. Let's go.
Joshua Weissman, so excited for you to be here. I want to talk about the fact that you have, tens of millions of followers cumulative across multiple social platforms. And we're going to talk about food. We're going to talk about health. We're going to talk about nurturing people. But I kind of want to start with something else. When you have tens of millions of people following you, you get a unique perspective into the human psyche.
Ooh, yeah.
Do you think that people are happier today than when you were first creating YouTube videos, 9 years ago when you started?
Probably not. I don't know why exactly. I think that there could be socioeconomic pressures right now. So much has changed in a 5-year or maybe 3 to 5 year time span with COVID and just weird, wacky shit happening that's never happened before in society. Like a used car is now $20,000 over MSRP, even though it has 40,000 miles on it, and inflation, everything's more expensive, and then a pandemic, and then after the pandemic, I guess it's fine, but is it fine? And everyone's so confused. After society's gone through all these weird filters, it's just kind of shredded them down to the bone, almost, I feel like. And so happiness level seems to be significantly lower, or the way that they deal with their feelings has definitely changed. It's like the age of the hater in a way, right? But that's okay. I also think it'll go away. I think it's a phase. But if you scroll on Instagram, you're probably going to find a negative comment 80% of the time. And 20% of the time, you'll find a positive one at the top.
Totally. So basically, one of the interesting things I think for all of us is there's a bunch of data that shows that social media in many ways makes us less happy.
Yeah.
I think your videos do a beautiful job of a little bit the opposite of that. Even if I don't want to do the cooking, I like watching yours because it's funny, it's fun, it's ephemeral, it's engaging all your senses. Plus, there's no calories. Yeah. So I just get to watch it.
I wish I could add smell to one of the senses to engage. That'd be crazy.
Your
phone was poofing out
I think that'd be a problem.
Smell,
No, because then I'd be hungry. Yeah. It all. It's enough to just look at it.
And then I funnel that into my Uber Eats thing, and then you're paying me.
This is a business podcast.
Yeah.
So this is exactly where we're going.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
When it comes to your content in particular, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because you have unique ways that you think about food. For instance, I read this quote from you. I just want them to feel something from food. I want to make something that makes them think a little deeper about it. Even someone who's not into food, Cody, knowing that somebody spent 3 months developing what's on the plate, that it took 72 hours to get all the different components of it prepared, and that you're going to eat it in 30 seconds. That's crazy. And in my words, also beautiful. How do you think about food?
Yeah, it's a great point. When you look at art, for example, and I think food is art, and it is the culinary arts, so just so everybody knows. When you look at other forms of art, though, and that can be a painting, it could be music, it could be, honestly, it could be cars. If you're into cars, automobiles or motorsport, right? People look at these things that were, that you spent endless and endless amounts of time creating, different manufacturers or, art directors or whoever came in to make it possible, and all these different people and moving parts, and then they solidify it into this official final thing. And maybe there's multiple drafts. Maybe there's 100 drafts, 1,000 drafts. Nobody knows. And not to mention all of the failed drafts that led to the understanding to get to that product. And then it's solidified and crystallized in times in some form or another, right? With music, it would be a song, and it's there forever. With a book, it'd be a book, and it's there forever. With a painting, it's there forever. The irony about food is that same level of attention to detail, care, passion, stress, practice, craftsmanship goes into it, but it is made to be instantaneously destroyed and shit out, literally. Right? Like the weirdest form of art I can think of, just because its sole purpose is to be destroyed. And so it's kind of this hypocritical, weird, silly thing that for some reason people in food choose to do.
Well, I think what's lovely in food in particular, and I think we'd be happier as a society, is if, I walk into a restaurant and there's two things that my business brain goes to right away. One is like, what can we be doing differently here? How can we maximize revenue? Like little sickness. I think about when I sit down is really, man, how lucky are we that somebody determined that they wanted to spend their life perfecting the ability to feed us beautifully? And I think a lot of young people today don't see the full history.
Yeah.
There's kind of this snapshot moment that whatever comes out and is put in front of me is, in essence, all there is. And they don't realize there's this beautiful essay called I Pencil. Have you ever heard it?
No.
It's an economics essay. We can link it. It's beautiful. And it basically talks about how if you want to understand the depth of the economy, you should look at one pencil. And because the pencil, basically, they explain all the complexities that go into it, from like the lead that has to be created to the wood that has to be chopped down from a rainforest. And it goes all the way through it to the pencil finally getting in your hands.
Oh, yeah.
And so it basically talks about this interconnectedness of humanity. And I think about that a lot with food, that there's this beautiful ability at the end of the day for somebody else to decide they want to serve me. And wow, like, aren't we kind of lucky to have that?
Totally.
And maybe if we saw that more often, we'd realize there was magic all around. But what's interesting is a lot of people actually have the opposite reaction to restaurants these days. I mean, if you think about movies, chefs are really intense and working in restaurants is super hard. And and in business, restaurants don't stay in business. But you actually really liked working in restaurants.
Yeah.
You talk about it really positively.
You got to have somebody who has a different opinion that's not so negative, right? We can sit and talk about glamour that people want to hear, which is how hard it is. Working 14-hour days. Coming in on my day off and not getting paid to work on a special because that was fun. And you're not getting paid to work on a special, but in any other company, they would fucking pay you, right? We could talk about that and get people all riled up and get people excited about how fucked up it is to work in a restaurant. Or we could take a step back and be like, well, wait a minute, but people still continually choose to do it, don't they? Why? Because there's more to it than just this like brutalist, beat up society. It's something that's been driven by passion for generations since the dawn of the first restaurant. It is quite literally partially the nature of how a restaurant must operate to serve you great food. So just as much as someone would be critical to, speak negatively about that lifestyle, they're also equally happy to go sit down at a 10-course meal and wine and dine their husband or wife or whatever and pretend that doesn't exist. It all exists because of the passion and the love that people have to do it. And in a weird way, so from my perspective, for example, or I wouldn't allow myself to stay in certain toxic environments. I knew what was good and what was not good. So I look back fondly on the places I worked at because I chose to work at places that weren't that bad. Not to say I haven't had pots and pans thrown at my head. Trust me, I have. But in a weird way, like, you have to just be that sort of fucked up, twisted person that loves the grind, that loves being intense, that loves the perfectionism, and that's part of the art. The biggest difference between working in food and any other artistic job or career is the whole point is to suffer for what's going on the plate. That is what creating art is you suffer for the art. Some of the greatest art pieces ever created were created out of suffering. I'm not saying it's required to make great art. I'm just saying that it's part of the context. What I loved about it was the camaraderie. It was the going to battle every night. It was like being this insane practitioner / craftsman and being in a room full of people who feel the same fucking way every day. Like, there's not one person who's gonna like fucking scrub this tiny little part of the plate because it has to be that perfect. No one's in question of who the fuck they are in that building, and that's badass. Because most people don't know who they are.
Rare.
Yeah.
Now, you left this restaurant job to do something that people in the restaurant industry, especially at the time, probably thought was batshit crazy.
Yeah, totally.
You were going to go create videos online instead of working at a Michelin-starred restaurant and becoming a real chef. And now you were going to be a YouTuber. How did you decide to do that? Now it probably seems reasonable, and lots of people are jumping into it. But back then, especially as young as you were, not that reasonable.
Yeah, well, I should clarify that Uchi is not Michelin-starred, just for anyone who is watching this. I'm trying to remember how that felt.
What happened? Tell me about the moment where you made that decision. even.
Remember,
and to go do this different crazy thing.
Well, honestly, you would think that most people would think that I was stupid to wait that long, based off of like what I was making on YouTube. Like it was like totally overshadowing what I was making $11 an hour. At the time, I mean, obviously we've scaled this into like a substantial business, but at the time when you're just one person, you're making like 40K a month. It's like, what the fuck is going on? Like you're making literally the cook's salary every month. Like what is going on? Let me give you a very brief intro into how it led into that. So when I started doing it, I was very gung-ho about getting into the entertainment / teaching side of food because I was really bothered with what was being produced in entertainment and food. And I still am. But what really drove me was like, I just feel like these people don't care about food. They are not practitioners. They have not worked in restaurants, but all that aside, it's just the fact that they didn't care is what drove me so insane. And I was like, this stuff could be so much better and no one's fixing it. No one is fixing it. And I was like, I'll fix it. I can fix this shit. And so I started making YouTube videos. The funny thing is when I started was when I got the most pushback from people because people were like, dude, like just go home and rest. Yeah. Cause I wasn't sleeping. I slept for like 2-3 hours a night for almost a year while I was producing videos. The only way I could make it make full-time restaurant and YouTube work at the same time. When I left, honestly, I think most people were like, that makes sense. Because it was just like the grind I was putting into it. Most people were like, fucking hell yeah, dude. You know, it was cool. But leading up to leaving though, before all that, most people would make fun of me, you know, which is fine. Like that's part of like, we all razz each other. I wasn't like going home crying, you know, but they'd be like, Josh, you gonna go film a YouTube video when you go home? I'd be like, fuck yeah, I am, you little bitch. You know, and that was like kind of the vibe.
So have you always been the type of person who just kind of ignores when people make fun of you or think that something you're doing is goofy?
No. When I was a kid, I was super overweight. And so I got bullied pretty significantly. Yeah. But I think that kind of like gave me a pretty thick skin early on. And I mean, I ended up losing all the weight, which was great. I lost like 140 pounds when I was like 16. So, you know, in a weird way, they kind of pushed me to do that. So it's hard to, I regained this new perspective where I was like, I mean, you know, they were mean to me and they made fun of me, and I'm not saying it was right. And the way they went about it was way, way, way not okay. And I don't condone bullying, but it did push me in a direction that changed my life, which made me realize, oh, I can like literally just change something in my life and make good things happen for myself if I'm willing to put in the work. Okay, cool. And that attitude stuck with me from that moment forever. So the whole like people saying negative things about me kind of was this wash after that.
At some point, do you get sort of inspired by it? I mean, sometimes I think when I find people that are high performers, it's often I'd rather take somebody who had less talent and a bigger chip on their shoulder than more talent and no chip at all.
Huge. Very good point. I agree with that actually a lot. For me, it's not always, it depends. You have to also be able to put it through the filter and understand what kind of, you know, hate or bullying you're getting. Because there's like some that might be true that maybe you can work on or look into. There's some that are totally like, you know, batshit crazy. There's no correlation. That one you can kind of just be like, this person's not okay. I hope you're doing better, Bill from Wyoming. I hope you're doing better. Like, Bill, take the kids out, you know, something.
Touch some grass.
Yeah, touch some grass, bro. Like drink kombucha. You know, I've heard that like the mind-gut connection now. So you have to be able to decipher what's real and what's not real. But yeah, I definitely draw motivation from it. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't make me mad. Anyone who's worked in restaurants for long enough, for sure, you have to learn how to take an aggressive beatdown as, what can I learn from this? And it's not personal. Don't take everything so personally, you know? They're words.
Are there mental models that you use to not take things personally and not catch feelings when you get feedback and pushback?
The first thing is recognizing that feelings will always be there. You can't make feelings go away. Feelings are out of your control. Sometimes I do get feelings. Nowadays, I don't really. Honestly, I'm kind of like, I don't want to say numb to it, but I'm seeing the same thing over and over. I'm like, okay, cool. Like that was unoriginal. Let's try something new. If you do get feelings, that's going to happen. The biggest determiner is what you do, right? Like you just have to decide how you want to react to those feelings. And if you're able to get into this habit of every time a feeling hits you, it goes into your brain, You mentally process the feeling. You feel it. You feel bad. You will feel bad. That's not going to not feel bad. And you choose to not react in the way that in the negative way that you think you should. Whether that's like, if, you know, for example, if someone comments something or DMs you something negative, and it could be a close friend, it could be a relative, right? This happens all the time with relatives. Relative says something, oh, I don't know if I like this new guy you're dating, you know, or whatever. Then you get that DM, it hits you emotionally, and maybe this one really hurts, and you're like, fuck you, grandma, I'm fucking shitting on you today. Just stop for like, you can literally just not do anything for a second, sit in it, let yourself, you know, be as anxious as you want to be, and then think to yourself, before anything, what would be the logical response in this scenario right now? And so in that scenario, you might go, I'm just not going to respond right now. I'm going to give this a couple of hours. I'm really upset and really mad. Maybe I want to cry. Maybe you do cry. Cool. But you're not going to engage. You're not going to respond to it for the day. And then tomorrow you think about it again. Just make the rule to not respond. Cool. Okay. Next day comes around. Oh, I don't really care anymore. Or maybe you do still care, but you don't care enough to respond. And then, okay, then wait another day. And that feeling will go away. Feelings will always go away. But the action that you choose to take might be permanent.
When you were working in restaurants, was there ever a time that somebody made you cry?
Yeah, definitely. But I never showed it though. Anyone who's worked in a restaurant totally knows what this is like, where you kind of like have that like teary eyed, but you like hold it. You hold the tears in. Like I've definitely had that happen a few times. I've been,
what happened?
I've never cried from people being mean. I've cried from being called out and looked like I was a bad practitioner or looked like I was bad at my craft, because that is like, you know, in the past when you're coming up, that's like the one thing that matters the most. And it's the one thing you're most insecure about, because you're like, am I seasoning things well enough? Or like, oh, you know, my fish butchery could be better. And I don't know if I want people to see how I break down like a fish. And then you break down a fish and then someone says something. Geez, there was this one time that, God damn it, I really hope none of my people that I work with are watching this. I was making a gastrique, and a gastrique is really basic. It's like basically, the best way to describe it is like a French sweet and sour sauce. That's not what it is, but it's like reduced sugar, vinegar, and it's like a viscous sauce. And I put it in a pot on the stove, and I was leading a team of like 6 people. So I put it on the stove, and it takes a while to boil and reduce down, like 20, 30 minutes. So like, cool, I'll leave that there. I'll come back and check on it in a second. And I start working on a bunch of things. This guy's fucking this up, and I got to show him how to do this. And I'm like, don't do it like this, do it like this. I go about my day, and I'm just walking around doing my thing. And then the pastry chef comes up to me. She's like, hey, Josh, your pan's on fire. And I'm like, this happens. It's not that big of a deal. I'm like, oh, fine, it's fine. I'll take care of it. I walk over there. And it's not just on fire. It is on fucking fire. Like literally, this pot's not that big. It's like this big around this deep, and it's shooting a flame like 6 feet into the air, like a conical jet engine. And I'm like, what? How is this? This is sugar and white distilled vinegar. How is this even happening? And I'm like, oh, no worries. I know how to handle a fire. Pour kosher salt on it. Suffocate it with salt, which is like a pretty common technique. Pour salt on it, covers it, nice hill, stops the fire. And then like this little flame pokes through, and then it just erupts again. And I'm like, how is this? What is happening? The vice president of the restaurant group, like the VP of the restaurant group, this guy's been working there since the beginning. He's worked every position in the kitchen. And he walks in and he's like, who the fuck did this stupid ass shit? And everyone just looks at me, and I'm like, I did, chef. I did that. He looks at me and he just goes, who the fuck let you lead this team? And then grabs the pan and walks out with the fire going everywhere and walks it outside. And I remember just like standing there, just like dead quiet. And I'm like, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. He was right to be that mad. It was pretty bad. It could have like burned down the whole kitchen, you know, so it was pretty bad. And then I went out there and like, he was super chill. He was like, hey, look, I'm sorry. Like, he was actually really cool about it afterwards. But yeah, I almost cried.
I feel that one for you.
Yeah.
Well, I always used to think that like finance was the worst, that investment banking, we were mean to each other. And then I've had now a bunch of friends that are chefs, and you guys take it to a different level. And I think there's like some good and bad to that. And the good is you've basically gone to the gym of feedback and difficulty so often, every day, actually, that the rest of life is kind of a lot easier.
Totally. There's also discipline too. You can hide discipline, but in a restaurant, you cannot hide discipline, because if you are undisciplined, it visually shows, and you will eventually get kicked out of that kitchen if you decide to, tread that water like that for too long.
It seems to me, when I look at like historically the industry of food, you had chefs, and you had chefs who were great, regionally or even in their individual cities. And then you got kind of these like superstar chefs, which was TV-based superstar chefs. And then those have really given way to now social media. I don't even know if I always want to say chefs. Some of them are chefs like you, but many are not. And what is your take on, is it true that like the most successful and best chefs today are moving online? And if we categorize success as monetary, perhaps, is this the future of like big names in food? Or will it always be at a Michelin-starred restaurant?
Well, I think big names depends on what you mean by big names. First, to categorize that, if you work in restaurants, a big name in food is going to always be somebody that no one has ever heard of unless you work in that, right? It's sort of like, I guess, maybe in business, right?
Yeah.
Everyone knows like the Warren Buffett. Oh, what about Warren Buffett? But like, I'm sure there's tons of business people that, that you love or aspire to or have drawn energy from, that you might say that I have no idea who they are, right? But to you, they're like a fucking superstar. Okay. And that exists in food. So if we were to take that out of the equation, I guess the best way we could look at it is like television versus the internet, which back in the day was always like the Martha Stewarts, the Ina Gartens, the Gordon Ramsays, the, people that I looked up to when I was a kid. Like Gordon Ramsay was like, I've always said he's been my North Star since I was a kid. I got into restaurants because of him and Anthony Bourdain. Those two people were like literally the two people where I was like, and this is coming from a place where I already wanted to work in food. The internet, I don't know. It's like kind of everything now, right? If you're going to own a business, you should be on the internet. Yep. If you're going to have a restaurant, what are you doing not being on social media? Like it's not even a question for anybody. Now, in terms of fame, popularity, or I don't know, growing an audience, or who is the next Gordon Ramsay? Me. Where is the attention? It is not on TV as much, nearly, as it is on the internet. There's really only a few places that people put their attention. I would break it up based off of their desired experience. And by that, I mean, people have different modes for different types of consumption now. Before, it was like you either watch television or you go to the movies. Pick one and have a nice day. And you had two options. It was like, oh, I'm going to watch one episode of something that's 20, 30 minutes long, chill, watch that. Maybe you binge and watch a couple episodes if you have it on DVD. Or you can go and spend an hour and a half or 2 hours and make a big event out of it and have dinner and go out with the family and go see a movie. That's dead. Done. It's gone. It's not coming back. It will never come back. Now, I'm not saying you can't like go out and have fun with your friends and watch a movie. I'm just saying that now there's so many other ways to consume. So to me, it seems inevitable that, whatever the previous idea of the biggest name in food being on television, I don't think that exists anymore as much today. But I don't know, it depends. I don't have a crystal ball. It just depends on where the attention is. And to me, it seems quite diffused at the time. And even the biggest heads in television and entertainment are looking at that and going, and they're thinking, kind of scratching their chin, thinking, well, what can we do to, build this out properly? I don't think anyone's going to, die in the process. I do think that there will be like mergers, but it seems to me that the internet is the place that people go to consume food media.
Yeah,
nowadays.
Totally. I was meeting with an A24 executive the other day, and she was telling me that in their conversation with the streaming services, all of them are sort of pondering how to include like streamed first-person POV or user-generated content into their systems.
Yeah.
It actually is crazy. When she was explaining it to me, I'm like, that is wild that actually Netflix has no optionality for anything like that, because it seems like such a low-hanging fruit for them, and it would be free as opposed to how expensive their cost is.
Totally.
How else could you compete against YouTube, which costs them $0? It costs you $500,000 to build this location. If they were going to do a Netflix series, they'd have to build it all, but you've already done it. And they could just stream you on the service, just like YouTube does. So it'll be interesting to see if that happens.
Yeah, totally.
Well, let's talk about the monetization of food online and entertainment. I was looking at a bunch of these online food cookers, chefs, etc. And I was kind of laughing because everybody's got a tagline, right? So you've got like Alleviated, who says like horngry and only
that's who is that? That's
is that somebody else?
Oh, who is that?
My husband's going to be so upset that I can't remember this. Yeah, Susie. Alleviated though is the one that flicks off the camera.
Yes, Olivia. So it's funny. This actually happened really recently. So Olivia's a friend of mine. She came here. She flew out. We filmed 2 videos. It was super fun. She was very chill. I appreciated that very much. And she like blew up out of nowhere. It was crazy. And then there's this other girl, Susie Vidal, I think it is.
That's it.
And I actually had just discovered her like, I don't know, a week ago. Olivia texted me and she goes, do you know Susie? And I was like, oh yeah, I saw one of her videos like yesterday, which was, it was a day or whatever. I'd recently seen them. I was like, yeah, I think I know who you're talking about. And she was like, dude, Susie has been watching you for like 4 years. Like, we got to get together. So anyway, shout out Susie and Olivia.
And I thought it was kind of brilliant because she has this like, instead of only fans, it's only pans.
Yeah.
And then she, instead of being hungry, she asks if you're horngry.
Yeah.
It's like perfect for our generation.
It's great. Yeah.
And then Olivia has the little flip off. And then you have multiple signature moves from like the eyebrow. Were those cult? Do you guys?
I think they're just. I honestly think all of mine are not intentional at all. I think they're just like tics or something that I do at this stage. Like, I have a camera on me all the time, so I just like kind of do shit. I've never intended to create any taglines, but sometimes the audience. Honestly, I just do things and I pick up on when the audience loves a little thing that I do. And, maybe sometimes I do it more often because I know they like it and I do it for fun. You'll notice if you look through my comments, like everyone. So I was kind of the one who started like really going deep dive on big recipe content that does big views, that's applicable for everybody. Right. Yeah. And so because of that, I used to make this joke where I would go, what did I say? I don't know. It sort of started along the lines of I started to get annoyed with people because they would ask so many questions that I had already answered. So I was like doing voiceover, and one time I was like, "Don't worry, sweetheart, all right? Papa's got you." And I just did it sort of as like a silly joke. I don't know what happened, but I got into like people's like daddy issues and daddy kinks because of that. But also just people in general because of like the fact that I'm like teaching. And people are kind of looking to me for direction. People refer to me as Papa, like in person and in the comments and in my DMs. Yeah,
I'm only calling you Papa from now on.
Yeah, it's a real thing. It's a real thing. Like all my comments, like literally, I posted this video. Like I've been like dieting for a while, and I'm starting to like finally get some physique response. Your guy's too damn good looking. I'm like trying to compete with him in the gym. I like see him doing something. I try to put more weight.
You said you guys were working out the other day.
Yeah, he's good looking. He's a good looking one. So I'm like, I'm over here. Yeah, good work. Anyway, so I've gotten more fit, and I posted this video of me like it was like my exposed back. I don't know why I did it, but I was like
very saucy.
Yeah,
let's show the video.
It was unintentionally saucy, really.
Okay, it was like you were like that chick that like kind of wants to show you her outfit, like not all the way. You were like kind of over your shoulder. It was great.
My intention, what's funny?
The back looks good.
Thank you. I've noticed that I think that's like my biggest asset. I realized that I have good genes for a good back. And I saw it and I was like, holy shit, like I really built my back out. This is going to show how lean I've gotten. Because I've had this back and forth with my audience. I'm like, I'm getting shredded this year. This is happening. So they know I'm doing it. And so I was like, I'm going to show off my leanness because you can see how lean I am in my back. And it was just a video that I took. The video was like 2 minutes long. I just did the part that showed off how lean my back was. And I was like, oh, people will get it. No, dude. No. And so everyone's like, Papa, more like daddy. And like, Jesus Christ, y'all. I am married.
She probably thinks it's funny too.
Yeah,
I like it.
She's actually less enthused about it anyway. She's like, yeah, you look good. And I was like, oh,
cool. Yeah. You know what? I think mustaches, goatees, and probably your back are just for other dudes.
Yeah, it's true.
So I think that's my husband's the same way. Beards, it's not for me. It's for
dudes
every other dude.
Love me. It's crazy. Way more than women do, for sure.
When you create your content, you were like, I think one of the early people to create food ASMR cooking videos.
Probably not.
And do you even call your videos that? Because I think it's kind of a cool idea. Like if I'm listening to this right now as the audience and I'm thinking of creating content in some way, shape, or form, You talked earlier about like, I wish I could make them smell. Well, you can't do that, but you can make them hear, you can make them feel, and you can make them see.
Totally.
But a lot of times people forget the tactile sensation of hearing and how addicting it is.
Yeah. I don't know that I started the ASMR ones like generally, but I know for sure that I was the first, if not one of the very first, like within, like you could count on one hand that was producing food content on like TikTok. That's where the short form, right? Because there wasn't even IG Reels at the time. It was just TikTok. YouTube Shorts didn't exist. IG Reels didn't exist. It was very sort of a silly underground place to be. If you want to know who got me into it, it was Gary.
Smart. He's not often wrong about social media.
No, he's not. I'll listen to anything that man tells me. But I was lucky enough to kind of, I built a relationship with him and his team, and we talk from time to time, and he's great. I love him. And I remember him like just constantly posting about TikTok, and this was very early on. I went on there and started producing content, and they blew up every goddamn time because I was the only one doing it. So it was very much of lots of attention, very little production of content. I just kind of ran with it. And then everything, I like to call all these like different TikTokers and short form people my children, because they don't realize that they're all copying. They may not be copying me directly, but they're copying someone else who copied me, or someone else who copied them, who copied another person. It ultimately leads to me. Because the whole quick cut editing style stuff started with that.
Like you like slap the bread. Throw the butter on, sizzling, lots of like, unfortunately in the beginning I did a lot of sexual innuendos. I noticed that they got pretty good traction. So I did utilize that. Here's a funny story for one that I did. I used to slap my butt, which I really regretted. I really regret doing this. I used to show my ass, not my whole ass. Just a little piece.
So what happened was there was one video that this was when I was just me editing. Not a very good editor, by the way. And I was editing a short form or a TikTok video. This is like maybe my 4th or 5th or 6th TikTok video, maybe 10th. And they all did pretty good. I upload the video and it does like 8 million views in like less than an hour. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on with this? This one's going crazy. It's not even that good of a video. I'm actually pissed off that why didn't the pizza one do better than this? It was like it was like a grilled cheese, or I don't even remember. And I accidentally left in about 25% into the video. There's this shot where I meant to cut off the back half of that clip, but I didn't. And it was 5 seconds left in the clip that I didn't cut. And in that 5 seconds, I turned around and bent over to grab something out of the drawer. I guess I cut it. I didn't cut it short enough. So I did cut it, but not short enough. And so it's literally just me turning around and full ass bending over. The only reason I realized that is I went to the comments and they're like, Jesus Christ, he's got 2 yellow onions back there. That's crazy. I started doing that and they went viral every time I did it. And then I stopped doing it because I was like, this is weird. And now other people do that too. Have you seen that guy, the guy that sexualizes everything in food? I can't remember. Is it like Cedric something?
No. What does he do?
Cedric Lorenzen.
Oh, I got to check this out.
I don't even know if you can show a clip.
Really?
It's really sexual.
Okay, we're definitely showing a clip. So let's see for a guy who says like, bon appetito betches or something.
Oh, QCP?
Yeah, QCP.
Yeah, he's wild.
There seems to be a formula for cooking at this moment videos. In cooking videos, the formula seems to be like there's obviously some ASMR component of it. It has to be cut pretty quick. It has to be like relatively accessible recipes. Like they can't be too wild and crazy.
Yeah.
And then there's some funny entertainment aspect to it.
I would agree.
Do you have like a formula? You're like, this is what works now?
I also think there's another thing in that as well.
Yeah.
I think or you have presence. Ooh. People know who you are. Right? If Cameron Diaz was in this kitchen and I took a video of her and she had no formula, I think it would probably do pretty good. Right?
That's true. Yeah.
It's Cameron Diaz.
Yeah.
People know me pretty well and me and food already. And they know me because of my YouTube channel and so on and so forth. So I think that honestly, a lot of my videos do well just because it's me.
Yeah.
And I don't really always consider formula, but we do have generally a direction a video is going to go before we produce it. I think the number one thing, the formula that I always follow is, honestly, I follow my own viewing intuition. Very much of like timed cuts, if that makes sense. So I'm very formulaic on how long the attention span lasts per cut. And that's really the main thing that I follow. But like in terms of a saying or like having a saying or whatever, that might make sense for someone starting out that doesn't have a presence already. Yeah. I feel like if you are starting out and you don't know where to begin, especially with food content, what you should do is figure out who you are as a person and reflect that. Don't create a character, because a lot of people create characters. And I don't think that that's a great way to be happy.
No, I think you get stuck.
Yeah, find who you are and emphasize that. You know, if you're like the quiet person who's awkward, fucking let that out. Be awkward on camera. Be quiet and weird. I'm telling you, it will do well. There are so many videos of weird ass shit that do well, and I think that will cultivate an audience of people who associate with that type of a person.
Like, you're pretty much exactly the person I see in your videos, except maybe your videos have a slightened volume turn-up effect.
Totally.
But like everything you do in them, I go, oh yeah, I've seen that face before. Like
exactly.
Just hanging out.
I don't put on a character. If anything, I put myself in a moment. I'm like, oh, what's the energy in this shot? And I just need to bring that energy out, right? If I was like, you know, I show up and it's 9 a.m. and, you know, I just had my coffee and I've already worked out and I'm maybe just still kind of like, you know, in my head about something that bothered me earlier, and I show up on set and I know that we're filming pickups for a shot that's 10 minutes into a video. I'm not going to be like, all right, and then you put the butter in the pan. You know, it's like, oh, they've been watching for 10 minutes and I was talking a certain way. I just need to bring that back in, you know, so that's the other way.
How do you guys create a ton of content.
Yep.
And you create really high value content, and you seem to go viral every single time. You're getting huge views across multiple platforms. How do you keep the creative aspect flowing with the fact that you're like a production house now?
If you make a video and it does crazy views, the first thing you should do is not give a fuck. You need to get out of whatever feelings you have attached with those views. You need to murder those feelings and look at it formulaically and figure out how to rinse and repeat that process. But honestly, the bigger you get, people think it's like, there are things that are easier. It's wonderful to have a production company. You know, I pay people pretty well, and it's expensive to run a company. Very expensive, actually.
Yep.
Look, I'm not going to say numbers, but the simple reality is, if you are going to run a business and you're going to produce content and you're going to pay people, please understand that it's going to feel very volatile. It's going to feel very stressful. It's going to feel very pressuring. And now all of a sudden the videos that you're producing, they have to perform. So how do you make that work? Well, you need to have a thick skin. You need to be ready to, like, that should not bother you. You should still be able to be creative and expressive. And how are you creative and expressive? By not being stressed out. Good luck with that. So I think a lot of people will fail there. So first ask yourself if that's something you want to live with. But that said, the way that we do it is it's very feeling based. I have, you know, my top performers that are always by my side. We're always working together on creative. I mean, you saw it on the front of these doors. We have written on the front of our doors to the kitchen, says honor the audience. I think in the same way for a chef, what makes a great chef is not just making good food. That should be the easy part. Good food should be the easiest fucking part of your job. What makes a great chef is first being the artist, but also being the business person, being the financial analyst, being the marketer. That's what makes a great chef. So if that's what makes a great chef, then to me, that's what would make a great content production studio, is you have to be both. And the best way to mesh it is to bring out your creative, allow yourself to be creative, come up with things that resonate with you, because if they resonate with you, they'll probably resonate with your audience, but then find a way to honor their presence when they're watching you, which means, you know what? I love this shot. I don't think everyone's going to love this shot as much as I am. I just don't. Like, I just know. I know that people will watch this 2-minute segment of me doing this thing, and maybe, you know, maybe 100,000 people will appreciate it, but I need 9 million people to appreciate it.
Yeah, it's really, I think one of the toughest parts that I've realized about the content game is it is the most competitive game there is. There is zero moat to this game, and you are competing for the highest and most expensive commodity that we have in this day and age, which is people's attention.
Yep.
It is the only thing that we cannot create more of, and we have infinite optionality for what to do with it.
It's true.
I mean, you are competing with Donald Trump in the same time that you're competing with the hottest new Star Wars movie in the same time that you're competing with every single TikToker and actually the algorithm of TikTok driving the most viral things out there.
And it's free.
And it's free.
Anybody can do this.
Right.
You're competing with every single human being on planet Earth because anyone can walk in and just make content.
So I think it's a really good thing to ask yourself, do you actually want to play this game?
Very competitive. You have to have a thick skin. But also I think the biggest thing, because I feel like the way I said it made it sound like I don't enjoy this. I love this shit. Like I love doing this. Like I love it so much that the competition is not me. I don't feel like I'm competing with anybody. I don't feel like I'm fighting to beat X person. I'm fighting because I want to do this forever. And if somebody thinks that they're going to beat me because they want to make better content than me specifically, they will lose to me. They will lose.
Why do you think you have that type of attitude?
It's sort of like fighting for necessity over fighting for glamour. And I think when you fight for glamour, you eventually will fizzle out and lose not just steam in terms of like viewership, but you'll lose the motivation to do it over time. Because if you're fighting for something that doesn't actually really matter to you, and actually matters more to other people, like your image and your how fancy you look and this, that, and the other, you're gonna run out of energy. It's really hard. Like you really have to like be fighting for something that feels more like necessity, and something that I fight to continue to do what I do. I love to do this. I want to do it forever. That's a tough argument to beat.
I was thinking about this idea yesterday that I'm calling the law of more, which is basically if you look at some of the best producers or artists of all time, like Picasso, you mentioned before. Picasso has something like 200,000 prints and paintings that he did to become the most prolific artist of all time. If you look at Taylor Swift, she was like back and forth between being on tour or creating an album for the entirety of her career since she's been 16 years old.
It's crazy.
Which is why she's now almost has more albums than any other soloist.
Yeah.
I do think there's some balance between quantity eventually becoming, with relentless focus, quality.
Absolutely. How can you create quality without the reps?
Like if you want to be great, do a lot.
Yes, that is the game. Volume is the game, 100%. Working in restaurants, it's all I really know. I didn't go to college. So a lot of people like to make fun of me sometimes because they're like, oh my God, he always talks about how he works in restaurants. It's all I know. Like, what do you want from me? People talk about when they went to college, they don't get shit on for that. I didn't go to college. I didn't have any formal studies. I went and worked in a brutalist environment and I worked in fucking restaurants. And the number one lesson that I learned was you can become great at anything if you are willing to perform the relentless amount of repetition that it requires to become great at it. And it may be 500 times, it may be 5,000, it may be 10,000, it may be 100,000, it may be 1,000,000. It depends on how quickly you learn. It depends on so many factors, but I do believe that anyone can be great at almost anything. It's just how many reps is it going to take, and are you going to be able to do all those reps?
Yeah, it's so true. I've become kind of friends with Tim Grover. Tim wrote a book called Relentless, and I think it's a really good screen. If people love that book, they're going to like working in my companies. If they don't, they're not. So I agree with you there. Now, one thing you did that I think is fascinating that you don't get enough credit for and people don't talk about is the book launch. Like I want to obsess for a second on how to launch a best-selling book in a way that is not ads, that is not, even at the time you had a big audience, not the biggest audience, but you sold hundreds of thousands of copies of a cookbook before cookbooks were like mainstream everywhere. Talk to me about how you did that. How do you get 3,000 people to line up to wait to see you for a cookbook signing?
Yeah, that was wild. And also for reference for the cookbook signings, any of my audience watching, we're working on creating a better method. Okay, we weren't expecting that many people to show up. We didn't do any paid advertising. There wasn't like, oh, let's put a billboard up. It was all completely organic push for the book. Funny enough, actually, we did do one ad campaign. We did for free. We were doing this thing with Pinterest. We were working with Pinterest and they gave us free ad space. We used the ad space. You wanna know what's funny? Less than 1% of our sales came from that.
Wow.
And the amount of ad space they gave us was $200,000 worth of ad space. Less than 1% of my sales came from that.
What was the difference?
Authenticity, I think.
Yeah, but it's way more tactical than that. You were systematic as a motherfucker when you were inserting your book. Like, I went back and looked through a bunch of your videos. It's almost like you never marketed because you were in restaurants, but somebody taught you the book. Like, you would be cooking and then you'd be like, yeah, I'm thinking about chicken legs. Ooh, like on page 57 in my cookbook.
Yeah.
Talk about that insertion project.
It became tactical because I care so much about the viewer's experience. So much so that I modified my marketing perspective to whatever I do, if I'm going to promote my book, it will be in a way that is entertaining and not just totally boring and disruptive from the content that they chose to, so kindly give me their time to watch. The last thing I want to do is deter them with a shitty promo.
What would that be? A shitty promo would be like you with the book, like, look, I'm trying to hit the New York Times bestseller list.
Yeah, like people say you should be direct with the audience and say like, oh, my cookbook is out. I mean, I did say that, and I did have some promos like that. Like I did, right? But if every promo is like, my book is out, go and get it. Like, that's not meaningful. Like it feels very much like, give me your money, motherfucker. And I just I'm not like that. And certainly it's frowned upon from the world that I come from. Always be reserved. Don't, ask for too much. And so I was just trying to avoid being like that. And I think that's how we formulated the whole marketing around, if we're going to have you buy something, we're going to make it entertaining. And even more than that, we're going to lead up to it with value before we deliver that. We're not just going to go, book's out. Okay, now let's get to the value. It's like, no, value. By the way, silly fun thing, goo goo gaga, I'm going to wipe my butt with my book, which I did. Not literally, but I made it look like that. I launched my book by wiping my ass with a page of it. I tore a page of my book out. I was like sitting on the toilet and I look over and the camera cuts to the empty toilet paper roll and it cuts back to me and I pull up a sheet of my book and I'm like, and then it cuts to a black screen, and then it's basically like fades in. It's like, my book is officially out. Like da. My publisher was like, "Dude, I can't believe you did that. Like, please, please delete that out of the video." I'm like, "We can't." Yeah, we sold like 60,000 copies that day. It was crazy.
So it's basically like giving a little bit more love and juice to the idea of even trying to get your audience to sell something or to buy something.
Yeah.
Honor the audience would be. I mean, sometimes when I'm talking to my team, I think, one, you should never write a love letter to whom it may concern, right? That makes no sense. And yet most marketing is not named towards you, is not written like you would write a text to a buddy, and is not actually going to get somebody to pick up and do something.
Yeah.
It's written like a corporate speak that makes you want to gouge your eyes out. Yeah. And so instead, yours is kind of the opposite. And you almost lean into the thing that you don't want people to do, which is think that your book is shit.
Yeah, I've also done campaigns where I was like, here are the things that my book is good for. Using it as a shovel, or like using it to put hot things on it. I put a really hot pan on it. It caught my book on fire, because it was so hot that it literally caught the pages on fire. And it's just sort of like, just being silly. And there was one where I literally said, don't buy my book, fuck you. And a ton of people bought it that day. And it was sort of like this thing of like, what it tells the audience is it's not reverse psychology. I mean, maybe it is, but I wasn't trying to be reverse psychological. What it tells my audience is it says, I don't fucking care if you buy my book or not. I made it for you and I worked really hard on it and it's good and you've trusted me all these years. Here it is. If you don't want to get it, I don't care. Like, it's good. That's it. Me writing the book is good enough for me. And most people, I think, can really resonate with that and they can sit back and go, wow, he doesn't even need me to buy this shit, but I've watched him for, 3-4 years or 2 years. He's always been consistently good. Why wouldn't I get it? And look how confident he is in it. Yeah, like, sure, I'll buy it. It's, $20 or whatever,
What is the process when you're thinking about ads for your book? Do you think about it just like any other type of content?
I treat it exactly like content.
Yeah.
Which is what's the creative? What's the story? Is there a story? Is it a joke? Is it silly? Is it serious? Is it angry? Is there a point I want to make with it? It should be entertaining without the book being there, basically. It should be entertaining without the product being there. Are we going to put it in a scenario where it doesn't belong? It's like, it's a cookbook. Should we pretend to do an ad about getting a lobotomy and like do something crazy where like I pretend to have a lobotomy and I'm promoting my book and I have no idea what's on the inside of the book and that's the creative? It's like, if it is just fun to watch, that's enough for me, you know? And you can never guess how many people will follow through with it until it gets to them, right? So at least if you entertain them, it's better than nothing.
I think I want to tap really quickly into, so we've talked about how to sell books. We've talked about how to build a content empire. We haven't talked a ton about how your like goals have changed over the course of, you were 21 when you first started. Is that right?
Man, was I? Holy fuck.
You're 28 now.
How old was I? Jesus, I honestly don't even know.
Early 20s?
It was probably 5 years ago I officially left. So yeah, so 5 years ago.
5 years ago. So 5 years ago, you leave the restaurant and you probably just want to replace your salary, right? You're like, I just want to, well, you had already by then. I just want to make more money than I do at this other place. And I want to be my own boss. And I want to grow online. To now, you know, I have a best-selling book. Oh, wait, I have 2 best-selling books. Oh, wait, I'm one of the biggest YouTubers out there on cooking. What is next, and how has your goal changed as you've climbed your varying mountains?
You know, it's funny, it actually hasn't changed. I would say most people get into this nowadays by accident, right? They're like, oh, I made this video and it went viral one day and then I kept... No, motherfucker, that's not what happened here. Like the 2 hours of sleep every night, that was not by accident. Yeah. I didn't accidentally, you know, hustle my ass off. It was very much of like when I started, I knew exactly what I wanted to build. And that vision of what that is, that like thing that I see in the distance is still there. I look at it every day. And I have been looking at it for probably the past, I don't know, decade of my life, or maybe even longer, because, you know, I started cooking when I was 5 and I've cooked almost every single day all the way up till today. And so I've done the fucking 100 million hour rule, you know, whatever that is. When I was 11, this is the differentiator here. When I was 11 or 12 is when I saw Gordon and I was like, I want to make something like that. I think I can do something like that. And he was a big inspiration for me. And that created a goal in my brain then. And so every decision I've ever made has always been this North Star that I'm looking at, which is to build what I'm building now, but much bigger, with varying different things in it. You know, I don't want to like give the whole thing away. But like, you know, that big goal has never changed. I think the only thing that has changed is the way I approach things. I'm much less emotional about things. I approach things much more analytically. You know, all the sorts of things that you go through when you build a business is like, you get beat up a bunch and then you kind of like learn how to regulate your emotions.
You almost run out of money. You almost get sued. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. You almost get sued. Totally. That's happened. And you just kind of learn, oh, this is just running a business. Okay, cool. Well, I have this part down and this part down. What else do I need to learn to get better at this? What else do I need to like try out? And you learn how to be like, oh, the next venture, I need to take a risk again. Fuck, I need to feel the sense of risk again. You know, and that's where I'm at right now, where I'm like, I'm taking on more risk now to do the next step.
Yeah, there's got to be some huge correlation between risks taken from a business perspective and amount of success had. Yeah. Because I think that's the biggest thing that people don't understand. If you're not risking something, I mean, the other day we just raised a bunch of money and I put in millions of dollars for a company that we're scaling in the SaaS space. And I bought it and now we're building it. And, you know, I told some of the investors that gave us money, you know, I, knock on wood, have never lost money for anybody to date, and I'm not going to start now. And he kind of turned and looked at me. His name's Donald Park. He was like, if you have never lost anybody's money and you have never failed on a business, you are not taking big enough risks. And I was like, or I'm really good. He's like, never the case.
Whoa, that's crazy. That's deep.
And it's kind of true, right? Like if you haven't done a video where you're like, this video, I do not know if it's going to work, and we're going to spend $30,000 on it, and fuck, it totally failed, but we learned a bunch of things from it.
Yeah, it's happened.
Yeah.
Bunch.
What do you think's the most money you've lost on one video?
75,000, I think.
Oh, that hurts.
Yeah. I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars on videos. Yeah, multiple 6 figures I've lost on videos, but it's sometimes difficult to calculate what that really means, because what is a loss on a video? Especially on long form, because long form is really powerful. It's not like short form. Someone can watch a short form video and not give a shit about you. They can watch 20 of your videos and not give a shit about you. But long form is a commitment. You're watching a 30-minute, 20-minute video. I mean, my video is like 20, 25 minutes. People are watching television show, basically. It's like you could look at the back end of YouTube and basically go, how much money did the video make and how much did I spend on it? And then do your math and be like, this was the ROI, right? But that's not always the case though, because if you gained 50,000 subscribers, solid subscribers from that video, and then they all watch like, 100 videos each, then you're way above your ROI from that. If you think about it, I see it more as an investment than a loss, but I try to be careful with that as well.
Yeah. Well, I think, creating content online is sort of like running a startup, even if you've been doing it for a long time, because you just have to spend so much money consistently on content with the hopes that it'll eventually turn into more money or just an ability to continue doing the thing that you love to do. And I think that's the hardest part that people don't realize as content creators is they think that they're artists, but they don't realize your component, which is this business component.
That's true.
I want to wrap up a little bit on the food front, or my husband will kill me because he hates being called the word foodie, so I won't use that. He likes to cook.
Word.
It's a naughty. Why is people hate that.
It's just cringy. It's just kind of
like I'm a breathy.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, I would have said that in 2007 and looked back at it and regretted saying that. I don't know.
I've heard, for instance, that some chefs like cooking for themselves, but not for others, or like cooking for others, but not themselves, but there's a big chasm between the two.
Oh, wow. I've actually never thought of that before.
So which one are you?
I don't like cooking for myself as much as I like cooking for others.
Interesting.
Yeah, by far. I'll spend days on a dish, and by the time I'm done, I'm like, God damn, I don't want to eat this shit. Yeah, somebody else eat it.
Interesting.
I've been looking at it for days. I do not want to eat this. I'll have a little spoonful and I'm good.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to serve it to people.
So that's the nurturing aspect that you talked about.
Maybe it is. Or it's like me being like, I know the best experience of this and I want you to experience it and enjoy it the same way that I do. And I'm going to create a situation where you can.
I was reading some studies the other day on women today. And more than 60% of women today have never had a man cook for them below 35, which I thought was fascinating.
That makes sense.
And I was wondering, one, what's your take on that? And two, do you think it's like an unfair advantage as a man to be able to cook and to like cooking for another?
It shouldn't be an unfair advantage. It seems like such a basic thing. We're the only animals on the planet that cook our food before we eat it. Why does everyone not know how to cook? That's like a evolutionary enigma. That's incredible. It's literally in our DNA. Yeah, it is an advantage. Totally. It was my advantage. I'll tell you that. It's definitely my advantage for a long time. Okay, my wife knows. It was definitely my advantage. And it was my advantage with her too, by the way.
Do you teach a lot of young men how to cook? Like, do you see them in the comments learning from you and implementing it?
My audience on YouTube is over 75% men.
That's great.
Isn't that crazy?
And my husband, yeah. He's
it's
just rewatching it like a creep. So if you're new, I know this is like a 101 level, but say you're a dude, because most of our content is dudes watching it. Say you're a dude and you want to impress a chick, but you suck at cooking. Where would you start? Is there like 3 dishes that you're like, this is doable, but also a crowd pleaser?
Totally. Before you even start, you need to like research and understand the person you are cooking for. Yeah. Do not assume. Don't think that you're the big shot that's going to make the big fancy dinner. Just shut the fuck up and listen and figure out what kind of a woman they are. What if they're vegan and you don't know?
You break up with them immediately.
First you have a very, very important conversation.
Just kidding.
Yeah, more important than anything. You do pretty. One time I found this vegan cookbook in Kate's desk, and it was like a movie scene where you find like a text,
yeah.
But instead it was a vegan cookbook, and I was like, what is this? And she's like, oh, it's like a vegan cookbook, and I'm like, I can't be with you if you do this.
I literally have a meat dryer?
A dry ager. Yeah.
I have a dry ager.
Yeah, if you don't like the smell of 42 dry aged ribeye come fresh out the fridge, being sliced into a 2.5-inch thick steak, it's going to be cooked perfectly to 135 degrees Fahrenheit, internal, medium rare, and top with an au poivre brandy sauce, you fuck. You can't be in love.
Exactly. And she ignored you and walked back into the kitchen. as one does.
She's like, you're done.
Ask them questions first.
Figure out who the person is. Figure out what they like to eat.
Audience demographic survey. Got it.
Now, assuming that they're a meat eater, assuming that they, like beef, I would always have a beef dish in there. I think beef is really easy to make luxurious and nice and fun. Save that to the end if you're doing a coursed out. Another thing is a dessert. Pick a really nice dessert or a dessert that's easy to please, like chocolate chip cookies. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Telling you.
Totally.
you gotta have a dessert in your arsenal. If you make a killer chocolate chip cookie, I think that alone you'll win.
What's like the one little is it just like sprinkling a little Himalayan sea salt on top? Is there like one little secret?
Sea salt. Whoa.
Shows you
we're going
who
traversing
cooks.
the mountains or some shit.
Yes. Yes.
The trick is using my recipe.
Yeah. Page 42.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Okay, fine.
I don't know. But in my first book, I have a really good chocolate chip cookie recipe. If you do need one, you're going to use. But that aside.
Okay, so steal that.
Yeah, so steal that. It's a chocolate chip cookie or some sort of dessert. And then I guess the third, like it could be a protein, or I would say some sort of nice either side dish / appetizer or like a starch. Like a really nice mashed potato or like a risotto.
Do you have one you really like?
In the new book, I have a 1 pound of butter mashed potato. That's really good.
Okay, that sounds amazing.
It's insane.
So we go on a mashed potato. We got a what? Is it like a steak? So what we're going with? Steaks seem intimidating to me. Like, seems like you could really fuck up a steak.
It's really not hard. I think that's why it's such a great choice. The first thing I cooked for Kate was a steak. Seal it, dude.
Okay. So it's actually pretty straightforward. You follow the recipe. You don't have to French feel it. And a steak is doable for most humans. Okay.
Yeah, and I think just honestly, there are so few men that cook, I think, for their ladies in their life or the ladies they wish were in their life, that just cooking, you're already so far ahead. I only think you're gaining maybe a 10 to 20% additional advantage by getting really crazy with it.
That's true.
But I think if you go too crazy, like most of them will be like, oh, are you a chef? Like, that's cool. Then it becomes this like career thing. Just make a good steak and potatoes and call it a day, Make a great steak, like an incredible steak with a really nice sauce and like a mashed potato and like maybe some roasted broccolini with a little lemony sauce on it and just call it a day. If you're the one making it, you're like miles ahead of everybody else. And it's super simple.
Yeah, plus pair it with like a nice French wine.
Yes, know your
cheaper,
wine.
By the way, than most California wines.
Yep. And if you're in California or you're in New York and got one of those fancy girls, make sure it's an orange wine, okay?
Okay. I think we've just solved incelibacy in the U.S. for young men. Like food probably solves that problem. Yep. And I think it's the same thing for young women because these days, like there's this, kind of girl boss femme movement. Yep. But Chris, my husband, who loves to cook, will tell me that like one of the nicest things I can do for him is just take care of his stomach. And so I like, as much as food seems simple and obvious and genetic, like if we need to get back to this idea of loving one another a little bit more, of being slightly happier, I think a lot of it starts with our stomachs.
Totally.
And so I think it's a beautiful movement you have, which is why I wanted to talk to you because, we're really big on this idea of community and ownership in this country. And where does most community happen? Around the dinner table. And yet we have lost it. We have, like most families now, spend more time in front of the TV than they do in meals together, by far.
Phones now.
100%. And, we believe that this ability to Uber Eats our way and DoorDash our way to everything, which is beautiful and there's a place for that and I use it plenty, is just as good as sitting down with our loved ones and actually cooking something for them. And I just don't think that's true. And so I think this is a really important movement.
Totally. I mean, simple reality is when people think of cooking, and this is coming from the millions of messages, DMs, comments that I've read, is people only look at one thing when they think of cooking. They look at the inefficiency of it. They look at the fact that they're going to have to clean up afterwards. They only look at every single negative aspect of it, so much so that they don't even think about, is there even a benefit? Because the answer is yes, but they cannot look past this wall, which isn't a wall at all. It's this fake veil that's in front of them. And it's like, are you serious? Like, you go through life, you pay your taxes, you go through devastation, emotional devastation, you deal with the hardship of family, you deal with the hardship of just life in general. You don't want to like fucking clean a few pots and pans because you're afraid of having to take the time to fucking clean them, but you'll spend 2 hours on TikTok. Like, let's be real for a second and maybe just try it and see if there was a benefit. And I would say more times than not, the benefit comes in many forms, which is what you learn from cooking, I think, can be applied to life. I think there's a lot to be learned about patience. There's a lot to be learned about focusing on one thing for 30 minutes or an hour. Giving all of your attention and effort to Brussels sprout, as silly as it sounds, there is a level of release there that you won't get anywhere else, because there's nothing left in society today where you will give that much attention to something so seemingly insignificant.
It's beautifully said. You know, I think the best part of my day every day almost is Chris and I have a rule where we do not come home and eat separately. We always eat dinner together if we're home. And it's become a ritual. You know, we like have this little candle that we light. We always do a cheers, and the cheers isn't allowed to be repeated. So like every night we have to kind of come up with something that we think is special and worthy of cheersing at the end of the day. And then we cook, and we don't get that fancy with it. You know, he has your cookbook, so we copy some of your homework.
Love it.
But the thing that I look forward to is it's an opportunity to really pair with your other human.
Totally.
And it doesn't even have to be your partner, but whether that's friends or family, I truly think that there's some movement back to traditionalism in the US, and we're starting to see it. You know, you and I both have friends that we could name and know who are in the massive productivity above all else bucket. And let me tell you what, happiness is not the thing that they chase. And often like that joyfulness in life is missing because they are in the pursuit of what society tells us is important, which is, you know, money and more. Taking a little step back and feeding another human because it is a necessity to life is really, really beautiful.
Yeah. People are very black and white though. You can still be, you know, a hyper efficiency focused person. The irony is restaurants are all about efficiency, which is kind of silly, but you could still be that person that's all about, I mean, I'm not saying unhappy, but that's all about growth and everything, you know, make the numbers go up, make more money, make a bigger business, do things to the highest of high. But like, it doesn't mean that you have to eliminate and annihilate all forms of things that could be technically not moving that dial. Because I guarantee you do things in your day, every day, no matter who you are, I don't care who you are, that are not moving the dial like you think it is. They're just not. It's going to be okay if you take an hour and a half or 2 hours to make a meal even once a month. It's going to be okay. Like whatever you want to do in life, you're probably going to be okay.
The other thing people are obsessed with these days is being fit and food being a function, not an art form in many ways. And, you know, you've had this fascinating balance of losing hundreds of pounds, simultaneously making recipes that are not quote unquote healthy and sampling them and trying them. Can you be both somebody who loves food and experiences it and fit and healthy?
Totally. 100%.
And how?
It's very hard. But I mean, I guess we have to redefine what healthy means also, right? Like, is healthy having 6-pack, or is healthy, you know, being at healthier weight, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I guess if we're really going to trim this down to what people really care about, it's like, how do I not be fat? Is like kind of the question, right? That's what people really care about. They don't give a fuck about being healthy. They would be more than happy to die at 68 with a 6-pack.
Dude, that's actually exactly right. I think that's why people hate Brian Johnson. They're like, don't live forever, who cares? But I want to look hot and fuckable.
Yeah, I would love to live longer. I don't know when I'm going to die, but I sure as fuck don't want to ruin my quality of life just so that I can live 3 years longer. Whoop-de-fucking do. I mean, the goddamn steak. What I will say is the way you can balance it is, you know, you don't need to eat crazy every day. I mean, I think some intentionality behind your eating is probably good. Right now I'm like on a more extreme diet because I have like a goal that I want to hit just for the sake of my own fitness journey. It's like, oh, you know, I want to like do like a bodybuilding thing and see where I can go with that and try that out. I like having discipline in my life. But the way I do it is like have days that you know, are going to eat a little bit more under your regime of diet, and have days that are maybe a little more loose. Or if you can find a way to, you know, make that a daily occurrence where it's like, cool, for breakfast, I'm not going to go too crazy today. I think I'm just going to have, I don't know, I don't eat breakfast.
I was going to say, you don't like breakfast. That's like your least favorite meal, right?
I don't really eat breakfast that much.
That's so bizarre, but I'll let it go.
I don't know. Let's say like a fried egg on just a piece of toast with sliced avocado. Really chill, nothing too crazy, not high calorie. I'm just going to eat that, and I'm not super hungry, whatever. And then for lunch, maybe you go a little more crazy. Maybe you wanted a burger and fries. Cool, eat your burger and fries. And then chances are you're probably already going to be full for the rest of the day anyway. But it's like, okay, I know what I've eaten today. Using my intuition, I'm going to understand that I probably had a lot of calories. So tonight, I'm not starving. I'm just going to have like a chicken breast and some rice and call it a day, you know, and eat vegetables. I mean, you have to find whatever split works for you. Just maybe be mindful about how you're eating, and just, that's one way to do it.
Yeah, I think the beautiful part there is like, Listen, you can be Brian Johnson. You can be Peter Attia. You can be the fittest of the fit and be obsessed with that. Or you can have your glass of red and steak and also be pretty fit. And so I think it's really cool that you're pairing the two together. And I expect on the next cookbook, you have your eyebrow raised and the six-pack on the cover. Is that what we're going for?
That's what we're going for.
Are you, it's either abs or ass guy.
I have crazy glutes. I'm not even joking. It's actually insane. I don't know why. I think it's a genetic thing. Like, I don't have like the biggest, most like, thick biceps, and my traps aren't like some guys have like huge traps, but I have crazy back and crazy glutes.
So maybe that'll be on the cookbook.
Yeah. It'd be funny if the front of the book was like me sitting or like me standing, and it's like abs, shirtless, and an apron, and I have an apron on.
Yeah.
And then on the back of the book, it's my bare ass because you can't see because my apron's covering my legs.
I love this for you. I think we just decided, you guys can put in the comments if you want to see Josh's butt on the back of his cookbook.
Please don't. Please.
You just send him a picture of yours, but not full frontal.
Yeah.
And I think we've really wrapped this up. Is there anything else you want to tell humans who are probably not as into food as you are, but might just find a place in their heart for it?
So many things I'd like to say. Well, what's the general vibe of the people watching before I answer?
Probably somebody like me, like somebody who doesn't know what a sous vide is, or also the mise en place, or whatever the fuck that side dish.
Mise is like the most known term. I'm shocked.
That is not.
Even my wife knows what that means.
Well, your wife is married to a chef.
Yeah, but she knew before that.
She knew before that. Yeah. I would also like to know in the comments who knows what a
mise en place.
So there are people like me. So probably, not big chefs, not big cooks, but relatively successful and on the path thinking about success. And I think we want to slow them down a little bit, get them to think about food, or if you have anything you want to say on content too. You can really go wherever you want here.
Just seek out one good eating experience. Like, work really hard to seek that out, something really special, and be really intentional about how you do it. And just do it once. And I think the rest will kind of make itself after that. If you choose the right eating experience, I promise you that it'll become more of an internal thought process that grows from there. I don't think anyone needs to go from 0 to 100 and start cooking a sous vide steak and learning what mise en place means or whatever. I don't think that that's what it is. As a matter of fact, my whole goal when I started doing this was never to convince anybody to cook. Ooh. As a matter of fact, I despise when people try to convince anyone to cook. Half the time I tell people to go fuck themselves. But what I did want to do was get people interested and use food as a vehicle to entertain them, because I think that it will improve everyone's quality of life in some shape or form, whether they cook it or they eat it or there's a fun fact about it, because it's inevitability, an important part of our life. And there is a way for everyone to enjoy food at a really high level somewhere. They just don't seek it out. So seek it out.
Yeah, I just watched a show called Bottle Shock. Have you ever watched that? Old school movie about wine and the creation of the wine movement in California. And it was like the guy who created the first blind wine tasting. Yeah. And what I liked about it, what I like about thinking about this too, is in today's society, we really think there are like, 2 or 3 ways to determine success. Typically it's like your career, maybe it's your bank account, maybe it's also like your health and familial situation. Are you married? Do you have kids? But when I watch movies like that and I see microcosms like food, I remember that there is an entire group of humans who have decided to have their own definition of success. And in Bottle Shock, it was like, who can create the most incredible wine imaginable with no interest in anything else, almost no interest in money. And I think one of the cool things about what you talk about is the same thing.
Well, that's almost like sport. Who's the best?
Yeah.
Everyone loves to be the best, So who's the best winemaker? Who's the best chef? Who's the best pastry chef? Who's the best croissant maker in France? Who's the best chocolatier in France? But the funny thing is, food is probably one of the most subjective things of all time. There is no such thing as the best. There's only what's good to you.
Who's the best YouTuber in cooking? Joshua Weissman.
Nobody. It's definitely a deep thought. I think the only thing I can think of after my statement is just, I feel like a lot of people will be sitting here asking, but why? Like, why? Like, you're telling me to seek this thing out. Like, why should I care? I'm doing just fine. Why? Well, that's fine. I mean, technically you don't have to answer that question, but I will say that, like, everyone in most senses, especially really hardworking people, always feel like there's something missing. And this is something that definitely will add to your life in a way that you may not have considered that's going to be there anyway. It's one of the only things that's going to be there anyway. You're going to be eating any fucking way. You know, just take an extra hour and go to a nice restaurant or something, you know, or what have you. If there's one thing that I've seen change people's lives across the board, regardless of, you know, the color of their skin, who they are, what job what role they do in their career, whatever they're doing in life, food is easily the one leveling thing that has changed more people's lives than anything else, I think. Oh.
Nailed it. You guys want the inside scoop. So my little summary here is that I don't want you to let the jokes fool you with Joshua Weissman. You know, what really stuck with me from this interview in particular is the attention to detail in just about everything that he does. You know that saying, the way you do anything is the way you do everything? Well, that is here in excess. I mean, you guys can kind of see it behind me, but this is a real kitchen. You know, a kitchen that costs $300,000 with everything laid out so thoughtfully that he doesn't really have to use his mind. He can use his eyes to the kitchen, as he says. You know, we have this meat smoker over in the corner. We have all of his ingredients labeled and situated perfectly. We have like 13 knives of all different varietals. We have an entire prep kitchen behind us. There's this wild iPad thing, if you guys could see it, where you can click the different color settings in order to determine whether you want something to be backlit or warm lighting, or in this case, a little bit of purple, because this was Tanner's guess today. And so I think the biggest takeaway is it's really hard to beat somebody who's relentless and relentlessly focused on details. And when I watch somebody who has mastery, somebody like Joshua, I see that they don't let the little things slide. It doesn't mean that they're maniacal. It means that they are that word relentless, which I think is a beautiful way to describe a human being in pursuit of the thing that they want more than anybody else. And that is here. And so I wanted to share one of my rich friends with you. I wanted to share Joshua with you today to see what it was like behind the lens of somebody who's gotten billions of eyeballs over 5 years at a very young age of 28 and done it in a way that's a lot tongue-in-cheek, but a lot of seriousness behind that joke. And it reminds me of like the great comedians today, which I think are one of the pillars of truth that still exist in this world around us. And the great comedians today, what are they? They are obsessed with the detail, with every little comma and punctuation mark that go into the things that they say. And he is a comedian that is also a chef, that is also a YouTuber. And so I hope you took as much away from it as I did today. Okay, let's talk about restaurants again. In 2008, women spent 66 minutes a day making and prepping food. In the 1990s, that was 112 minutes. In 1956, that was 2.5 hours or 150 minutes. And in the 1900s, that number was 5.5 hours a day. Go all the way back to the 1800s, it was all day. So we need to thank restaurants, farmers, cooks, and technologists everywhere for the restaurant. But here's the rub. If you want to be a chef, maybe don't open one because most of them fail. They're incredible restaurant groups and people who make millions doing it. You know, you got Nobu, Fox Restaurant Concepts, Momofuku, etc. But the truth is, restaurants are incredibly complex as a business. First, let's look at the numbers. So, because the numbers are hard to lie with, I like to start there. The average small business in the U.S. sells for around $800,000. The average restaurant goes for $198,000. Why? Because 60% fail in the first year and 80% fail after 4. Restaurants, on average, ain't for making money. Second is margins, or how much money you make from the money that you bring in and put in your actual pocket. On average, restaurants can expect net margins of 3 to 5%. Tiny. I won't do a deal unless I can make 30 cents on every dollar, or 30% margins. 3 to 5, oof, you're in trouble if you make a few mistakes. Now, imagine a few people don't show up, food goes sideways, you're out of business. Third, competition. This is what's called a red ocean market. A blue ocean is where you have no competitors. It's like Uber when it was created, or Facebook. It's sort of a first. A red ocean is where you have so much competition you can't throw a rock without hitting another. If you want to make this, Herculean task of eating at every restaurant in New York City, for example, it would take you 22.7 years. It'd take 12 years just for Manhattan. 3.5 for Queens. Who even lives out there? The fourth reason I don't like them is procurement. So forecasting demand, storage, waste, theft, managing off-peak hours, pricing, calculating gross profit of each food item. Let's take just spoilage. You not only have to buy up inventory intelligently, but you have to hope that you are so good at guessing if the fickle crowds will eat your 3-day-old shrimp before they go bad. Fifth, they're really expensive. Restaurants to build out cost anywhere from $95,000 to $2 million. And then you got to deal with, I don't know, all of your employees in the back doing dirty deeds. I don't care if you're a foodie or your buds tell you that you should sell that perfect cheeseburger that you make. Don't do it unless they're giving you the startup cash. Restaurants are for humans that simply cannot exist without running one, in my opinion. So go eat there. Go frequent them. But, don't do deals where you eat. This deal of the week, though, is not to say that I don't love restaurants, but to say, first, don't be greedy. Share this pod with the needy. Okay, now, let's get into the idea that if you don't want to own a restaurant, you could still become a chefluencer instead. This is a new word. I had no idea what it means. Here's a fascinating example. There's this guy, Thomas Straker. He basically built his whole business around viral short-form videos on Instagram and TikTok. He's a London chef with a book, and he spent 10 years working in top restaurants in London. And then he kind of thought, I want to bring like high-quality, simple cooking to people like Josh did. His big rise to fame was the TikTok series, It's All Things Butter. In 2022, he started this little series where he just made butter recipes on camera. Like in some instances, he didn't even make the butter. He just mixed butter with other things like Marmite. I don't even know what that is. It's probably English. And then combined it with butter and called it Marmite Butter. This series got over 10 million views on just individual clips. So in 2023, he raised $500,000, seeded his company, started calling the company All Things Butter, and sold a bunch of flavored butter like garlic and herb. This year, they landed a $2.2 million investment from a private equity firm. So as of this May, All Things Butter sold about 250,000 blocks of butter. Not too shabby at all. My take for you is, let's all cook at home a little bit more together, but maybe skip the restaurant. All right, guys, I hope you liked that episode as much as I liked filming it. It was so cool to see inside of Josh's studio. Hell of a setup, man. My guy is like drooling in the background, trying to get me to spend more money so that mine gets set up nice like his is. We don't talk a lot about, food on this channel. That's not really my song and dance. We do talk a lot about community, about owning our communities, and about taking things back to the community. And this episode, I think, is really a nice way to put a little bow on that bad boy. All right, if you haven't subscribed, you know the deal. Hit that subscribe button, or don't be greedy. Share the podcast with the needy. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Big Deal podcast. You are a big deal to me. See you next week.
That I have it, you know that I got it. No need to look all in the bag. Something like this because I work so hard. I'm the best.